Listener Communications. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
Live intro.
Hey, hey, hey.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and we are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau, and this is a listener communications episode. Don't know how long it's going to be, doesn't matter. We are joined in studio by Laura.
Hey. I'm back.
So we did mention this, I think on the last episode, that I wanted to get her in here for this listener communications, and so we were able to swing that. But we were only able to swing it by recording this really early. So I don't even know if it's worth doing Space Weather News or anything else. It's going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks early.
What are you doing, Laura? You going to party in the Dominican Republic or what?
Yeah, I'm going to Dominican Republic on an island. Take a little vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to try to do some Snake Brosy things with Chase.
Okay.
We agreed.
Fontini?
Yeah.
Yeah, we agreed, like, we're going to party for Jamie's birthday. We're going to party, but we're going to, like, try
to find some pyramids.
Yeah, we're going to try to, like, do something.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try to find some ruins out there.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
Don't you have another trip planned, too? Is there somewhere else
And then
you're
one of
going?
my best friends is getting married, and so I'm going to Mexico, Playa del Carmen. So I'm really excited about that. 2 trips, like
Any
months
pyramids
apart.
around there?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's stuff around there. It's everywhere down there.
Yeah.
I'll probably do the same thing there, see if I can get a buddy to team up with. It's like, hey, let's go try to find some Snake Brosy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
I'll take some stickers and tag some stuff.
Tag
Oh,
some
I need
stuff.
Tag a pyramid.
Tag some pyramids.
You know what? I need to put that on my list for this packing, actually. I need to take some stickers.
I don't have any stickers.
I've got some stashed away somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I probably should restock. I gave all mine away on the last.
You got to have the stickers. You got to do the tagging.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You only live once. Tag it.
Yep. So that's happening. That's why we're also doing the episode early, because Laura's leaving town in 2 days.
That's right.
I got the kids.
Yep.
And, yeah.
So you wanted to get me on here because what? Is there some secret stash in
Yeah,
one
we
of
have
those
a
emails?
big surprise we're going to release.
Like
on the
something's
show.
about to unfold in an email?
No.
Oh, okay. You said last show you were saying you wanted to get me on.
Yeah, I've just been thinking about
Oh.
it because occasionally
You've
I'll
been
get
thinking
emails.
about me, man.
Well,
I've been
occasionally I get
thinking.
emails where people like you need to get, or they'll say Snake Bros and sister or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, we should get Laura back on.
Yeah. I always
Yeah.
love coming in here.
Yeah, it's great to have
It's
you.
good to have you, babe.
And I still get comments and emails about Fat Buddha. So every time I see one of those, I'm like, I need to get her back on.
Oh, you guys, and I got to go. Russ went twice. Russ did the whole Buddha thing twice just for me. Just for me, so I could have the experience.
Yes, in the Scablands we went to.
No, it was Montana.
In Montana.
Kyle stayed in the car with Lila,
Yep.
and Russ took me and Soul and ran us around, and
Yeah, there's some weird
we went into
giant
the
Buddhist like shrine thing there.
Yeah, it was huge.
the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, I didn't get to finish part of one of the days. And then I find out that everybody went to the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas. And I was like, what?
Yeah, you left early because it started raining.
like I was just like,
Yeah.
I was just like, no. Okay, I'm going to do that.
You can see how it goes when Laura feels like she's been left out of something.
Yeah. No.
That's right.
And
That's
Russ
right.
was cool with it. I came out there in the morning and I was like, hey, I know you're having your coffee and you're smoking. I don't want to bother you.
Yeah.
You can just.
That's right, we went on the
I want
way
to just
out.
drop the idea on you and let it sink in. Remember? And I was just like, just think about it.
Yeah, that's right. We went on the way out on our trip back. That's right.
Yeah.
Because so the last day of the Montana trip, right in the afternoon, I guess it was just after lunch, it started hailing, raining and hailing, and that's when you decided to bail.
Yep.
Yeah. And we went to a couple of other stops, but Randall had already seen the garden at that point, and he wanted to go. And so on the way back from the last stop, the last geological stop or whatever, we all stopped at that place, and then Laura found out we went there.
I was just like,
She was like, you don't get to go to that, and I didn't get to go.
Yeah. So Russ was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
I was
so
like, yeah.
so when we were driving out with the family, headed home, that was our first stop, was to go see that, which was cool. It's a cool place.
Yeah.
It's a little strange.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, but it was cool.
Yeah.
The flowers were beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was just reminding me, thinking of Randall, going to a place like that. Like when we first went on the first Contact to the Cabin trip with Randall, we met him
Yeah.
and all that. I was expecting when we'd go to a place that he was going to hold forth and like tell you all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
But he's just like,
Yeah.
he doesn't say anything. You're like,
Yeah.
so what do you think, man?
Yeah.
Very interesting. He doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah. That's right.
And it's like, I'm used to it now. So it's like, okay, he wants to go to this place of, whatever, land of 1,000 Buddha.
Yeah.
And we're walking around and he's just like,
Yeah.
what do you know about this why you wanted to come here? I don't know.
Because he's an old hippie.
It's probably it.
I just
Dang
looked
it.
it up on the internet.
It's actually because of,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know too much, but I've heard, I've hung out with him and his brother, and I know that they, in their youth, were
Yeah.
basically followers of that kind
Yeah,
of
they
religion.
went and
okay, I didn't
they went on
Rowan
some
went to India
Yeah,
with
yeah.
a Swami or whatever, and, I mean,
they traveled
both
with
of them, or all three of them as brother. There was three brothers or whatever, and they all three were, I don't know what you would call it.
initiates or
Something
for
like
a
that.
while.
Students under this guy while he
Yeah,
was in the
yeah.
States, and then when that guy went back to India, Rowan went with him, and the dude paid for Rowan to fly out there, and Rowan basically stayed in I can't remember what it's called. And his job was to keep the place clean and sort of be the maintainer or whatever. And this guy would go to various places and teach. And Rowan could either go with him while he taught, or he would just give Rowan he would say, "Here's my driver with my car. You can go anywhere you want." And so Rowan visited a ton of temples, and it was
I
a cool
can just
story.
see this. You walk into the temple and Rowan's in the corner with a Q-tip, wiping a spot on the floor.
You guys have
Looks
met
pretty
him
clean.
in person. Have you met him in
Rowan?
person? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah,
met
I
him
got
in-
to hang
I
out with
haven't
him
met yet.
I haven't met him in person yet.
So I heard the story from Rowan firsthand, and he told me this hilarious story about. He told once he told me that he could take the guy's car and drive her anywhere he wanted. And sometimes the guy would say, "Hey, go visit this temple and walk around in there." So he would have he would have instructions on what to go, and sometimes he could just do what he wanted. And then he decided he wanted to go visit this place that was way up on top of these mountains, like a village with a temple or whatever, way up in the mountains. And he said that the road up there was extremely perilous, and that the driver was afraid of heights. So they got part of the way up, and the driver just completely freaked out, and Rowan drove the rest of the way. Or no, I guess he told the guy to turn around, and he walked or something. Told the guy he would get back home himself. Anyway, it was a fun story.
Wow, Rowan.
Yeah,
I've only talked to him on the phone.
This is
Can't
when
wait
he
to
was
meet
in
him.
his early 20s. So, but yeah, cool stories, and I think that's what Randall's interest in that is kind of it's from a long time
Traces
ago.
back to his
youth.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So you
Good
got
insight.
you got stories?
I do.
I've got emails, and then I was going to just ask you guys.
Nope. And I was gonna say there's not much going on with the. I've been sick. I kind of we've had a bunch of. We tried to get together, and then I was like not feeling well last weekend. We tried to do something before that, and it's everybody. We live in different cities, and
For the band you're talking about? Yeah.
Byman's in Malibu right now with his company, so we're just kind of like things aren't happening. So
Yeah. And then
this is it's dry.
everything's dry.
Still waiting on the fruit to ripen.
We did do a couple of small harvests, and we got some wine in, but yeah.
But the coolest thing is that the creek is being dug out, and it's going to be
Yes.
beautiful.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
they made it to the dam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, they've been working their way from the top of the reservoir all
You
the way
should put
towards the
some
dam.
pictures on
And I went down and I walked on the dam today for the first time when there's no material
Yeah.
on the left side.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, dude, this is going to
Wow.
be so awesome when it's
Yeah.
full of water.
Yeah.
And
If it can fill up.
the operator was like, man, y'all can take a speedboat and do some like, skiing in this thing. Yeah, bro.
Cool.
That's exciting. Anyway,
Because the rain's coming.
the rain is coming.
We
It's
are
always coming.
due. Well,
rain's
no,
always
but
coming.
we're due, babe.
We're due for a flood.
Yeah.
20-year flood.
20-year flood. So it's coming.
Well, if it comes like that, it's just going to fill it back up with silt. So hopefully
No.
So I got the scoop on this, and I don't know if this is interesting to the people listening to the show, but we work next to these the Ninehoffers, right? They're our neighbors on both sides, and they're farmers, and they've been farming there all their lives, and I think maybe that goes back generations because they have a homestead and all that on the property. Anyway, he came out to look at where we're putting the material because he knows that this place we're filling up this draw with the material, not filling it up, but we're putting it down into this ditch basically that's like a dry creek bed. And he came to look at it because he's like, I've seen that thing with 8 feet of water in it, you know, going through here. So I had him come over and take a look and tell me, like, do you think it's too full? Should we take some material out? Should we build a berm? Because we don't want it overflowing and in a flood and the water redirecting like through their field or through our field.
Through our field, yeah.
So he came out, and when we were looking at the job, he tells me what all that material came from.
Oh,
So
yeah. Because they've had the property for forever.
Yeah, but it was like 20 years ago or more in one of the floods. I think maybe the 2002 flood or something, the big flood. So upstream, there's a number of dams going upstream. The whole creek has got dams all along it, right?
Yeah.
Well, upstream, these people built this dam, and they were told, like, you need to build it further into the walls, into the banks, and they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And this
So it
big
tore the
flood
bank
came,
out.
and it tore out around the dam, and just all this sediment just came down and filled in all these basins down below. So he's like, yeah, that all of that stuff came from basically one big flood.
Yeah.
But you're wrong. It's not going to happen again because that dam
I was
upstream.
going to say, like, that confirms my story.
Well, but they fixed the dam, right? So now it's fixed.
Sure.
Okay.
Come on, Russ. Anyways, all right, let's do some stories. I mean, that was worthy of the farm life. It was, God dang. I went,
Yeah,
wait,
that
ain't happening. God dang.
That was great. What's next?
What's next? I've got 2 stories here. I'll do the first one. This is from Earth Sky. It's called Enceladus Ocean Not Too Salty for Life. Saturn's moon Enceladus has a global ocean of liquid water beneath its icy surface. In 2005, NASA's Cassini spacecraft discovered water vapor plumes spewing from the little moon's south polar surface. Cassini also showed that the subsurface ocean on Enceladus might be able to support some forms of life. It has heat, mineral nutrients, and organic material. On July 20th, 2022, researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology published a new study suggesting Enceladus's ocean is a little less salty than Earth's oceans. Coupled with the previous findings, this new finding bolsters the possibility of life in Enceladus's ocean. Wang Ying Kang led the research team at MIT. The researchers were able to estimate the saltiness by studying how the surface ice covers the ocean below. Let's see. On Enceladus, the salinity of the ocean, the silicate core, and the ice shell all have significant impact on the ocean dynamics and habitability. Of profound astrobiological interest, Enceladus appears to have a global saline subsurface ocean, indicating water-rock reaction at present or in the past, an important mechanism in the moon's potential habitability. Here we investigate how salinity and the partition of heat production between the silicate core and the ice shell affect ocean dynamics and the associated heat transport, a key factor determining equilibrium ice shell geometry. In particular, the researchers wanted to know how the thickness of the ice shell relates to the salinity of the ocean. Saltier subsurface oceans should, generally speaking, have thicker ice over a planet's or moon's poles. That's interesting, right? I wonder why. Less salt.
Only over the poles. Is that what
Well, he's just saying they should have thicker ice over the planet's poles.
Yeah.
Less salty oceans would have thinner ice. So that's the difference, right? The study showed that the salinity level on Enceladus is likely intermediate, as the New Scientist article explained. The team devised a theoretical model detailing how ocean salinity, ocean currents, and ice geometry affect each other on a planet or a moon. Then they tweaked it to best reproduce the properties of Enceladus's ice. From the paper, it says, among scenarios explored here, the pronounced ice thickness variations observed on Enceladus are most consistent with heating that is predominantly in the ice shell and a salinity of intermediate range.
Intermediate between what? That's the next question. Like, do they mean between what we think of as freshwater and saltwater? Like it's
I guess like between freshwater and our ocean's salinity, maybe is because that's all they're saying is it's less salty than our oceans.
Okay, yeah. So it's
Let's see. Let me skip ahead here. Let's see. It's kind of like pretty redundant. All right. Thinner ice over Enceladus's poles. Interestingly, the results of the study indicate that the ice over Enceladus's poles is thinner than at its equator. That would point to a less salty ocean. More specifically, the specific variation in ice thickness suggests that the ocean's salinity could be as high as 30 grams of salt in a kilogram of water. That's salty, but less than the Earth's oceans, which have 35 grams of salt per kilogram. So it's not
much.
Not much.
Less salty, yeah.
Overall, it sounds promising for the potential for life. The waters are salty like oceans on Earth, but not too salty. So now going to...
So I'm interested in this, like, because the polar ice is thinner than the equatorial ice, that tells them that it's not as salty? Is that what they're saying?
I think that's what they're saying.
So, like, a totally fresh water, if it was not salty at all, you would have really thick equatorial ice and really thin polar ice? That's weird.
Saltier?
I'd like to know what the mechanism for that. Yeah.
Saltier subsurface oceans should, generally speaking, have thicker ice over the planet's poles. And I suppose to finish that thought, than at its equator is what they...
Yeah.
But they don't say that.
Right.
Less salty oceans would have thinner ice. So
yeah,
it's kind of weird. They have some pretty cool diagrams here, too, or sort of diagrams.
But the primary fact that they found plumes is like that's implying that
that's what we're getting to. Yeah,
liquid water,
there's heat from the seafloor.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into that. Another intriguing finding seems to support earlier data from the Cassini mission. The team found evidence for heat emanating from the ocean floor on Enceladus. Previous analysis by Cassini of water vapor and organics in Enceladus's famous plumes suggested the existence of hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor.
Yeah.
This new evidence would seem to agree with that, although more study is needed. On Earth, such hydrothermal vents create an oasis for many different types of organisms. They provide essential heat and nutrients in otherwise dark and hostile depths of the oceans. Last year, scientists also reported evidence in the Cassini data for a lot of methane in Enceladus's ocean. Could this be an indicator of methanogenic organisms in the ocean? I don't know. But I thought that was really cool. One of the diagrams that they're showing is basically you've got this ice shell, and then it shows like, I mean, this is just, to me, I find this fascinating. Like, this is the perfect egg to live in, right? Egg. You're protected by this gigantic shell at the top of your atmosphere, basically, if you're living there. If you're a surface-dwelling creature, then you have this giant sky full of your atmosphere, which is water.
Yep.
Very dense. And then you've got heat being generated from tidal forces, I'm assuming, because of the planet's pull, and so
radioactivity and tidal forces.
Heat coming up from the floor, and then this protective shell on top. That's just cool. So that would be really awesome to find. I mean, I just imagine these massive creatures that might live in that ocean. It's so cool to think about.
Yeah. Depends. I guess it depends on what their,
Obviously, you'd have to have a lot of organic, you'd have to have a good biomass in order to support large animals, but
right.
still.
Unless they can live directly off the heat somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or the minerals.
Rock eaters.
Yeah.
So the other story I have is from phys.org. And this is, the title is, "We found some strange radio sources in a distant galaxy cluster. They're making us rethink what we thought we knew."
Again.
Excuse me, folks. I'm recovering from, the sniffles. Anyway, the reason I like this story is because of just all the information about these galaxy clusters. The radio signals are cool too. But anyway, the story says, "The universe is littered with galaxy clusters, huge structures piled up at the intersections of a cosmic web. A single cluster can span millions of light years across and be made up of hundreds or even thousands of galaxies. However, these galaxies represent only a few percent of a cluster's total mass, of course. About 80% of this mass is actually dark matter, and the rest is a hot plasma soup, gas heated to above 10 million degrees Celsius and interwoven with weak magnetic fields." Somebody should maybe come up with a cool theory that includes plasma and magnetic fields. "We and our international team of colleagues have identified a series of rarely observed radio objects, a radio relic, a radio halo, and fossil radio emission within a particularly dynamic galaxy cluster called Abel 3266. They defy existing theories about both the origins of such objects and their characteristics." So the next title is Relics, Halos, and Fossils. "Galaxy clusters allow us to study a broad range of rich processes, including magnetism and plasma physics, in environments we can't recreate in our labs. But maybe if they tried building a lab and recreating plasma physics things in there, that would be cool if somebody would do that.
Make some YouTube videos.
Yeah. When clusters collide with each other, huge amounts of energy are put into the particles of the hot plasma, generating radio emission." Did you know this?
Say it again.
When galaxy clusters, right?
Yeah.
When galaxy clusters collide with each other, huge amounts of energy are put into the particles of the hot plasma.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That is basically like a web between all the
Yeah.
bodies, generating radio emission. So I guess the two galaxies are traveling at such massive speeds.
It's galaxy clusters. Not even galaxies, but clusters of them.
Oh, when clusters collide with each other. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Clusters, when
Whoa.
clusters collide.
So, in those
Clusters
kinds of...
last stand.
Yeah. In those kinds of collisions, there's not really a whole lot of actual things running into other
Except
things.
the minuscule particles that are traveling at
Yeah.
relativistic speeds compared to the other.
Relative to each other, yeah.
That's really cool to me. Huge amounts of energy are put into the particles of the hot plasma, generating radio emission.
Yeah.
That's just cool. And this emission comes in a variety of shapes and sizes. Radio relics are one example. They are arc-shaped and sit towards a cluster's outskirts, powered by shock waves traveling through the plasma, which cause a jump in density or pressure and energize the particles. So this gigantic wave
Yeah.
moving through the medium of plasma that's in empty space,
Yeah.
right? This is freaking badass. Okay. In, relatively empty space compared to a star or something. An example of a shockwave on Earth is the sonic boom that happens when an aircraft breaks the sound barrier. Thank you. Thank you for that example. Radio halos are irregular sources that lie towards the cluster's center. They are powered by turbulence in the hot plasma, which gives energy to the particles. We know both halos and relics are generated by collisions between galaxy clusters, yet many of their gritty details remain elusive. Then there are fossil radio sources. These are the radio leftovers from the death of a supermassive black hole at the center of a radio galaxy. When they're in action, black holes shoot huge jets of plasma far out beyond the galaxy itself. As they run out of fuel and shut off, the jets begin to dissipate. The remnants are what we detect as radio fossils.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this. This is really cool to me.
Yeah, you can find cool pictures of the remnants of these giant plumes coming out of along the axis of the galaxy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The axis of
And
rotation.
even after that process that generated those plumes is long over. Like, in other words, we're looking at it and it's no longer making the plumes, but they're still there.
They're still flying out. Yeah, like a supernova.
Yeah, this giant hourglass shape. And they get distorted over millions of years or whatever, but they're still letting out a lot of energy from...
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so Abel 3266. Our new paper, published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, presents a highly detailed study of a galaxy cluster called Abel 3266. This is a particularly dynamic and messy colliding system around 800 million light years away. It has all the hallmarks of a system that should be host to relics and halos, yet none had been detected until recently. Following up on work conducted using the Murchison Wide Field Array earlier this year, we used new data from the ASCAP radio telescope and the Australia Telescope Compact Array to see Abel 3266 in more detail. Our data paint a complex picture. You can see this in the lead image. Well, you can't, but I can. Yellow colors show features where the energy input is active. The blue haze represents the hot plasma captured at X-ray wavelengths. So it goes on to describe the image. So basically the conclusions are they're basically able to tell which objects are older and have less energy, and that they may have lost a lot of energy over time, or they never had much to begin with. And then they talk about the radio relic being visible. Let's see. Okay, so they're just basically saying the whole concave shape of the relic is unusual, earning it the catchy moniker of a wrong way relic. Overall, the data break our understanding of how relics are generated, and we're still working to decipher the complex physics behind these radio objects. The radio fossil seen towards the upper right of the image is very faint in red, indicating it is ancient. We believe this radio emission originally came from the galaxy at the lower left in the image, with a central black hole that has long been switched off. Wow, I didn't realize they did so much analysis on these pictures.
So switched off just means it's no longer... I mean, the black hole's still there. You know, it's just no longer doing the process that generates those enormous amounts of energy.
Yeah.
Like, it no longer has fuel, basically.
It's kind of just like dead?
No, it just means that there's no material falling into it at a regular rate. Like, if they get these huge accretion disks, I think this is the basic idea, but a black hole in the midst of a lot of material develops a large accretion disk. That thing is rotating, and closer to the event horizon of the black hole, it basically becomes a massive dynamo, a humongous electromagnetic generator, because everything's spinning so fast and it's so hot, and then that generates these huge plumes. But once that material's gone, or the black hole consumes all of it or most of it, then it's in a clear area and it no longer has material to eat, and it goes dead, quote unquote. It just stops.
Yeah, okay.
You know, making all that noise.
Okay, so basically what they're saying is...
It's only a model.
And it's very confusing.
What is
So
that?
what's-
Let me
it's
hear-
only a
what was
model.
that? It's only a model?
Yeah.
It's only a model.
No, what they say is their best physical models simply cannot fit the data.
Okay, yeah. So what's the mysterious...
They say this reveals a gap in our understanding of how these sources evolve. Basically, everything that the models of the radio halos, the relics, and the fossils should be a certain way according to all the models that they know of, and then they're looking at this galaxy cluster, and none of it matches. They're all wrong.
Okay.
Okay, so then they...
All wrong.
Yeah, so they're like, this one example, Abel 3266, reveals the errors in our assumptions about what's going on.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, this gives us something to work with. So they did something, they say, finally, we used a clever algorithm. We defocused the lead image to look for a very faint emission that's invisible at a high resolution, unearthing the first detection of a radio halo, which is a new type of radio emission coming from this. They call it a radio halo. They say this is the beginning of the road towards understanding Able 3266. We have uncovered a wealth of new and detailed information, but our study has raised yet more questions. So
Yeah.
So in closing, they say the telescopes we use are laying the foundations for revolutionary science from the Square Kilometer Array Project. Studies like ours allow astronomers to figure out what we don't know, but you can be sure we're going to find out. Anyway, that's cool. I just
That's
loved.
cool.
I really liked the information in the. You just don't.
So the mystery is basically what they're trying to say is the mystery here is that they can't, using their current models, explain what they're looking at. Is that basically what it is?
Yeah.
And that's why it's mysterious? And so you would say, well, either your models are really, really wrong, or this particular cluster is just kind of anomalous in the sense that it did something really strange, and that's why your models don't fit it. Like maybe there are other factors that they can't see.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I kind of skipped over this stuff, but when they start showing the images, they're showing you where the radio relic is.
Yeah.
But then they're like, it's wrong. It's got this concave shape. They call it the wrong way relic because it doesn't match.
It isn't shaped right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's cool stuff. Giant waves and plasma and magnets.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
We kind of talked about this when we were on. Actually, I don't know if. Hopefully, this will be out by the time this episode comes out. But when we were on with Alex and Marty on Skeptico, we talked about this a little bit. I think about the possibility, and this really comes from the original idea, or the best expression of this idea comes from the Three Body Problem, that sci-fi series that I've referenced so much. That what is there a possibility that a lot of our cosmological science might be how do you know what you're looking at when you're looking at very distant things in space? What if that's being manipulated by something that just doesn't want you to figure out real physics?
Yeah.
So much of our there's in the books there's two basic ideas that you have to do what he calls basic science or fundamental science, and that is you got to build particle accelerators, and you have to do cosmology with bigger and bigger telescopes. So over time, you basically need to build larger and more efficient versions of these two kinds of machines in order to look out at the universe and then to see the big stuff, and then do high energy experiments with with the small stuff. And this allows you to work out how physics works in fundamental ways.
Okay.
And this kind of, he doesn't do this in the book, but it kind of ties in with so much stuff we see in the ancient texts that say, that there's some kind of, the custodians basically have a problem with us having technology.
Yeah.
They don't like us getting this knowledge of the gods, right?
Yeah.
So what's interesting is in the story, he basically shows you how an alien race that's ahead of us, but maybe not by much, but you have to think of how fast we can advance. So how far ahead of us do they have to be? 100 years? How far ahead are we of ourselves 100 years ago?
Yeah.
So if us today, with our technology today, we're messing with a civilization that was us 100 years ago, you could really mess with them.
You could mess with them good.
Yeah.
Because they would have no idea, with a lot of technology, what they were even looking at. There's no personal computers. There's, so you can imagine that an alien race.
But they live at one with nature, man. You don't want to mess with them.
So you can imagine that an alien race that isn't that far ahead of you in terms of time can be really far ahead of you in terms of, enough ahead of you in terms of science that their science may be like magic. And then if they have a way to just make it so that your experiments show you stuff that's misleading.
Right.
This is making me think of one time we were out here in the yard looking up at the stars, and you told me something like, everything you can see here is just what's in our
galaxy. Yeah, Russ told me that and blew my mind.
It's the same thing. I thought,
Yeah.
wow, we're trapped.
Yeah.
It's making me think of that because
Yes.
We're trapped
you're
in a
saying-
100 million light year long.
well, what you're saying is something else doesn't
I mean,
want to
100,000
see or-
light year wide. We're trapped in a 100,000 light year wide box. Yeah,
But it's more than that. The galaxy that we see, that the Milky Way, is the most distant thing that you can see.
yeah.
That's the background. All the stars that you're looking at are
Are, like,
within
in our
4,000
wing and
light
stuff.
years. Yeah.
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 That is crazy.
Yeah.
It's
That's
too
with
big.
that's with the naked eye, obviously. You
Yeah.
know, we have telescopes now, but I'm just saying things like this story where they're trying to look at something specific.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the hell is going on here? And they're like, none of our models are right. And then that makes them start working on them. They're like, well, maybe we need to fix our model. So you can kind of see how
Yeah.
this science fiction idea of how much would it take to just sort of damage the data, the observational data enough so that your physics can never really get things totally correct.
Yeah.
And if you're ahead far enough, you know what you don't want them to figure out. And so you know exactly what part of their experiment to mess up,
Yeah.
you know? So this.
But you might not catch the guy who's doing stuff in his garage.
Yeah. You might not catch GMA.
That's why those guys randomly vanish after they invent
That's
something
right.
cool.
Yeah. They just disappear. But it's just interesting how that also could tie in with these ancient stories of the gods not wanting us to, eat of the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get down with that 100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
We know you're all in on the aliens. We know.
I can get down with everything you're saying.
So on going back to just physics real quick, I think it would be it would seem a nice symmetry that things at a large scale suddenly act in a way that is completely unrecognizable to us.
Oh, yeah. I see exactly where you're going.
So
with that.
in quantum mechanics, like things on a very small scale, once you get down so small, then suddenly you're like, none of this makes any sense compared to anything else that we can see or experience in our lives or any other testing. All of the objects act in strange ways that you just have to accept.
There's no analogy for it.
There's no analogy that
Okay.
really can do it justice. So we can detect what it does, and we can work that out, or these physicists work it out using math and say, okay, this is what it does, but it makes no sense.
Okay.
I mean, it can make sense, but not in a way that you can relate to.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I just, thinking of these giant structures, these galaxy clusters, running into each other, the massive amounts of energy, like on this such a broad scale, such a huge scale, that maybe it's the same. It would just be symmetrical if it's like we're in the middle
Yeah.
and everything acts a certain way in our range of stuff. And then when you get on massive scales, it starts to act like nothing we can imagine.
Yeah.
And the same thing when
Okay.
you go down to the
That's what you're
quantum
saying.
scale. That'd be
Like
cool.
maybe certain kinds of quantum-like behaviors reemerge on the macro scale.
That could be too,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a
Yeah.
loop.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I like that too.
That is really awesome. Yeah, and that would be symmetry. Yeah, of a kind.
Yeah. A symmetry of scale, which doesn't exist. It does not apparently exist.
Right. That's right. Yeah, there is no symmetry of scale.
But that would be a way to introduce it once you go broad enough.
Yeah.
On a broad enough
Oh,
spectrum,
yeah.
there does now start to appear.
There can be
symmetry of
there can be
scale.
an approximate symmetry.
Yeah.
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 So that's cool.
All right.
Alrighty.
Well,
Shall we take a break?
yeah, let's
Maybe-
take a break.
Okay.
What?
Well,
Oh, the timer's
yeah,
out.
the timer.
Yeah.
It's
And I
break
bumped
time.
This.
Rookie mistake.
Sorry. I'm rusty.
Oldie but a goodie. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Segment 2. The best segment.
Oh,
of this
yeah?
communications episode. Segment 2 is always the best.
Oh, yeah? Is it because it's your little intro thingy?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just totally making that up, babe. But yeah,
Joined by the Watcher.
joined by the Watcher. That's right. How's it going, oh boy? Did you crawl out of your tin can? Well, you can't go outside. But how's it going?
Pretty good. I find Kyle's always got a preference for segment 2 and 4 for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, he thinks those are the best segments. For
Yeah,
sure.
except when we have a guest. Then it comes on and I'm like, so keep going. I'm so terrible, dude. It's like I freeze. Right. You know, it's like, okay, we're starting this segment. What am I going to ask him? I don't know. I just freeze, folks.
You're not a natural interviewer.
No, I'm not. Keep going. Keep telling me cool stuff.
So before we dive into the emails, have you guys been thinking about anything snaky recently that we should talk about before we anything at all?
Huh, let me think.
Always thinking about sneaky subjects.
Let me think about some snaky things.
You guys want to talk about Mercury?
You got Mercury stuff?
There you
Like
go.
liquid mercury or the planet?
Come on, man. You know it's liquid mercury. Don't do that to me. No, I read an article not too long ago about the Coral Castle and how there's this flywheel in a liquid tight
You got
container.
something
I sent
spinning.
it to you guys. And liquid mercury, magnetic field, damn near perpetual motion, perfected. Just fascinating.
Where is it?
I don't want to open the Coral Castle.
In Florida?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. The thing that's like
Whenever Watcher
been
sees
there
a
for
flywheel
80
with missing components, he's always going to replace those components with liquid mercury.
liquid mercury, dude, every time.
Oh,
It's
he's-
every time.
But yeah, it's been there for like what now, 60, 70 years, and we still understand like less than 10% of what that guy built.
I think it's longer than that.
Is it like 70, 80? Like he built it in like the... I could probably look that up.
Yeah,
I
look it
remember
up
my
because I
job.
think it's like
Sorry,
early.
guys.
Should get the Watcher to look it up.
Yeah, look it
Yeah.
up, Watcher. Do your job. Yeah, I thought it was like right after the turn of the century, like 1900. Maybe it's older than that. Maybe it's 1920s. I don't know. But yeah, that would put it at 100 years, something like that.
1923 to 1951, he was constructing
Wow.
it.
Oh, okay. So he was working on it for a long time.
Yeah, because he built it all by himself. That's
Yeah.
the other thing that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, people would be like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" Nothing. Don't worry about it.
He was pretty secretive about it, yeah. Yeah, and people have wondered if he used some weird technology to move the stuff around because he has those pamphlets on magnetism that he released and atoms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some of the stones that he moved are like several tons in weight,
Yep.
and he didn't have any heavy machinery.
Yeah. And he quarried them too. Like he not only constructed that stuff, but he quarried those things out of the bedrock.
I'm sorry, I missed the name. Say the name again.
Coral Castle is the name of the
no,
place.
the guy, the name.
Ed Leeds
Leeds
Collin.
Collin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting subject. And then I guess he also famously claimed to know the secret of the Egyptians when somebody asked him how he
Yes. Yes. Secret of the pyramid builders.
secret of the yeah.
Leverage.
Yeah.
He's probably thinking something like that.
yeah.
You know, jerk.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there are really good videos now, online you can watch of single, just one guy moving around very heavy
Yeah.
blocks, and rotating them and lifting them up using leverage and things like that. So it's not impossible. It's just the whole project is just really fascinating.
Yeah.
Well,
Are you talking about the videos with the guys spinning rocks on top of smaller rocks and like rotating them into place?
Yeah, I think
You've
they're
seen
big.
those?
They're big concrete blocks. They
Yeah.
weigh a lot, and he's showing you how you can rotate them and lift them up by doing this kind of leverage thing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
you put something slightly off center
Yeah.
so that you can kind of lift the other
Yeah, you
side.
can
and then
rock it
you put
back and
something a little
forth.
taller in there,
Yeah.
and then you rock it the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Petrie mentioned that as a method of lifting heavy
Yeah.
stones up the sides of the pyramid.
yeah, yep.
So
Yeah, and those guys are usually working in heaven too, though, which is fun.
Yeah.
You know, they're on a nice
flat concrete.
poured concrete, reinforced concrete slab, which is not the same thing as starting in the sand or in the mountains or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
take it down a mountain, take it back up another mountain.
Yeah,
And then stack it
and then,
up.
and then leverage it into place.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So I've been listening to Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. You know Dan Carlin's podcast,
Yeah.
Hardcore History.
Yeah.
So good.
It's
Yep.
pretty good.
Oh, my
he
gosh.
slams you with stuff.
It is intense if anybody has not listened to this stuff. But anyway, I've been listening to the first series I listened to was the World War I series. I freaked out about it a while back, I don't know, a year ago or more. This time I'm listening to the Pacific Theater of World War II. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily snaky topics, but it's kind of like putting you into situations that humans can get themselves into. And, like, obviously there's conspirators, people planning stuff and all this, but when you end up in the jungle and you're just the crazy stuff that people put up with that they dealt with is amazing. It's just unbelievable, the things that we've been through, the things that we've gone through, just
That
in,
our
in
mind
modern
will
times.
just say, and we accept it. And
Yeah. And one of the things I thought was a really interesting story of this one that I kind of thought about in a broader sense was one guy, I can't remember his name, he's a Japanese guy who was told to go into the jungle by his commanding officer and do some, fight and blah, blah, blah. And don't stop until I relieve you of duty was his command, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So 29 years later, after the war has been over for so long, he's still there.
Yeah.
And he's still in the jungle fighting whoever comes along or whatever.
Yeah.
Has survived all that time, and they figure this out, and so they people go there and say, hey man, the war's over. They start bringing him newspapers and just try to show him like it's over. He doesn't believe anything. This is just
it's propaganda.
It's propaganda coming from the other side. And so he tells him, he's just like, I was told not to leave until I was relieved of duty by my commanding officer. So they have to go get his commanding officer, who's like a baker now.
Oh yeah.
And I guess they put him in uniform and they fly him out there to this
that's crazy
jungle island somewhere, and he has to relieve the guy of duty.
Yeah.
His name was Teruo Nakamura.
Okay. Yeah.
29 years in the jungle.
That is insane. But you think about...
That's dedication.
Yeah, but think about that on a cultural level, on a cultural scale. The culture of a people. Like, you're given the charge by these God characters that give you this command as a civilization. Here's what you're going to do until I return.
Oh yeah.
And then they do it for thousands of years.
loyal.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it when someone shows up and they're like, oh, you're the returned God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're making a good point there.
Yep.
I thought that was cool.
That's making me think of the present time small village somewhere, I cannot remember where, of the people who don't have like any technology whatsoever, that are still in
Like these uncontacted tribes. In the jungle.
There was one in the news a while back, but I can't remember where it is. But that's making me think. Some of the stuff you're saying is making me think of, like, what do you think about that present time, like right now?
I know, it just...
There's an island off the coast of India where they kill anybody that gets near.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, real quick
But they're not
interjection.
civilized, like, at all.
Well, I mean, they have their own whatever. We don't really know a whole lot about them. But
Yeah.
But we've gotten some pictures of some.
They're
of
not.
them.
They're not.
And they're like looking up at.
They're not necessarily technologically advanced, but they have a civilization.
I don't know what
They
you
have a
classify
culture.
as a civilization.
They have a culture or whatever. But yeah, they're not technologically advanced necessarily.
So the name I gave you was fake news. Blame Google. The guy's name, though, this is great. Aptonym, Hiro Onoda.
That's right, Hiro Onoda or Onoda.
And he was on Lubang, a small, tiny island in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And they told him to hold it until as long as he could keep it from the enemy until you get an order to leave.
Yeah.
Oh, the
So,
Philippines, babe. That's why
29
shit
years
goes down.
later, he's there
He's
on the
still
beach
doing it.
screaming at people.
It's
holding
my
his
island. Dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
And he came out, he still had guns, he had ammo. Because, I mean, they drop all these supplies and they're just in the jungle.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
It's amazing. Yeah, I had heard those, read about that kind of thing just in general, but never the details. But
That's what's so good about hardcore history, man.
Yeah.
He goes into the details.
He hits you with it.
It's really good. Highly recommended to anybody.
I highly recommend it too.
Yeah, I was looking through the Viracocha stuff again recently about, how they, in South America, they show up and they travel up and down that continent, and then how the stories are basically the same, but they have slight differences, and sometimes he's got people with him, and then other times, basically when you kind of go through a bunch of the stories all at once, you sort of start to get this overview picture that he initially shows up with maybe 6 or 8 other people, and then they kind of split up, and in some cases, the Viracocha story is just about one of those guys showing up somewhere. In other cases, the Viracocha story is about the main guy showing up with 2 other dudes, because they'll describe Viracocha, or he had Kontiki or whatever had these
Had his followers
or servants, the soldiers of heaven. They had these various different names for them or whatever. So you sort of get this picture of a small group of people with one guy who is the leader, but they all have the same kind of basic physical aspect, that they're bearded, they're tall, they're not the same as the natives, and they kind of spread out through this country, and they quote unquote work miracles everywhere they go, which is basically telling people how to survive, how to live, how to build a civilization. In some cases, they start up giant engineering projects. And it's just really, I don't know, to me, it's really, but it's in kind of what you're talking about. They set up a culture and then they leave saying, we'll come back. And that culture lasted.
Dude,
Thousands
they're
of
time
years.
travelers, babe.
I don't know.
Prime example right there.
I have a big problem with time travel.
Yeah, so do I.
We don't have to get into it.
We
In
had this
fact, we're
conversation
not
a while
getting
back.
into it. I'll tell you the snaky thing I've been thinking about lately. I don't really understand how the whole mass of Earth works. And I was thinking, if something blasts through part of the Earth and a big chunk of it flies off, does that change the atmosphere so much that just the rest of the world is highly affected by a big chunk coming off?
Oh, yeah.
And do we, to death?
Well, it depends on how big the chunk is. I mean, yeah, but I don't know if anyone could survive an impact that would take a big piece of the planet off, or anything would survive that.
Because of what it would change.
It just introduces so much heat
Oh, it's the
that the energy of that impact would probably just melt the surface.
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
boom.
I think you'd also lose quite a bit of the mantle in that process if a hole was ripped open.
It just depends on how big. That's why I was saying
How big the hole-
chunk is. Yeah.
So think about it, the impact that wiped out the dinosaurs also wiped out, most of the life at the time, right?
yeah.
A small fraction of the life that was on the planet survived, just something hitting, because it causes so much damage. And
I think and if the hole's big enough, then
you're gonna have lava flows.
Yeah, if anything survives that impact, because you'll have this enormous shockwave that travels through the entire atmosphere, and it's going to knock down every forest.
Okay.
And
Shakes
it's going to
the
go.
ground
It's
the
going to go
whole
around
yeah,
the
there'll
planet
be
multiple
earthquakes
times.
all everywhere.
Huge tidal waves. So if anything that can survive that, then all the water is going to want to pour into the hole. And then the atmosphere is going to sink into the holes where the water used to be, and then things like mountaintops where you can't breathe are going to be basically. I mean, it just depends on how big the hole
Yeah.
is.
And
A
then do
lot
we
of the
have a
land
way
we
to
live on now
measure-
might be too high altitude to breathe. If the
And
hole's
then
big
behind that percussive wave, you have like a giant heat flash
enough.
that travels in behind it, like thousands of degrees Fahrenheit, coming in behind the forest, knocking down,
burning everything.
And
wave,
then most of the
burning
stuff,
everything behind it.
most of the stuff that came out of the hole that was like the chunk is going to come back
Raining
down.
down and fire.
Yeah.
On fire.
How do we measure the mass, or like, is the Earth as big now as it was? Is it bigger?
Oh, are you wondering?
Like, have we?
It's always getting bigger.
Have we
Yeah.
been losing?
No.
No, we've been gaining.
Have we been gaining?
Yeah.
Or did we gain and then we lost some?
Well, I mean, we did lose some apparently because according to the standard model, the moon was made by exactly what you're saying. Something.
Which doesn't make
One of the
any
ideas
sense.
is something came along and hit the Earth, and a giant chunk came off, and that became the moon. But it's like everything was so molten at that
well,
point
then
that it
how
just.
was everything lit up at night before that? That doesn't make any sense.
The sun lit it up at night.
Yeah, and that chunk that flew off is made up of unique materials to only that chunk.
Yeah,
of
I
the
know,
Earth.
but I'm just talking about standard model stuff here.
Yeah.
All right, fair.
The
enough.
idea is that impact was so destructive that basically both bodies were molten, so they reformed spheres because they were just balls of liquid, basically.
Yeah.
That's how much energy it is. It just melts everything.
It did cross my mind.
Like the crust of the Earth is such a tiny, thin layer compared to the volume that's hard, and then underneath that it's molten.
yeah.
So we're just like the dry, cold crust of a pie,
Yeah.
a spherical pie.
Okay, just watering our plants, hoping they stay alive. All right, we
It's
got
like that
some.
thin film of stuff that forms on top of hot gravy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
or pudding.
Yeah.
Yummy.
And then you can poke your hand and it cracks it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got emails?
Uh,
I do.
No, we need to take a break.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're right. We have 3 minutes to the break.
Well, yeah, but we went long on the first segment, so look at that.
No, I agree. Don't try to dive into an email. We need to take a break.
All right, we'll take an early break, and then we'll get into we'll give
Then we'll
ourselves
get
a
hot
full
and heavy with the emails.
hour of
Okay.
emails,
We've got
folks.
3 minutes. Can you guys think of anything else that we are floating on the surface of? Like, does Jello form a skin?
No. What?
Oh, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. As it's freezing, though, as it's getting cold and congealing.
a better example would be ice, right? A thin sheet of ice on the surface of on the top of water, and then when you break it, it shatters, and then the liquid water underneath comes up on top and flows out over the top of the surface of the
Gravy
ice.
totally does that.
What about whipped
Gravy's
cream?
too viscous.
What about whipped
I wasn't
cream?
sure if I could start this debate in the last 3 minutes. I'm super proud of myself right now.
I feel like the inside of pie
The
drying.
surface of
I like
gravy
the
is
pie
not
idea.
crystalline in nature like the crust of the earth.
Oatmeal. The oatmeal I make for baby sis definitely does this.
And if it's got brown sugar in it,
You know,
it's got the
I agree that
crystals.
ice is good. I mean, ice is a good example.
I
yeah.
like ice.
Yeah.
All right, break time.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Snakes.
To 33. That is 30 to 33% brain expansion guaranteed. Brothers of the Servant podcast. Don't want to confuse anybody. It's not 32. It's 30% to 33%.
Ah, okay. I got
Just to
it.
make it more
I
confusing.
got it.
It's
I
30.
get it.
Between 30 and 33% brain expansion.
I
How about
got it.
that?
I like it.
So we got a bunch of emails. And this first one is from an old favorite. It is Roddy the Mammal.
Oh, he's back.
He is back.
So he's a current favorite.
And I'm pretty sure, okay, so I had a follow-up to this, which I couldn't find. but he told me that he was not sober when he wrote this. So I'm just going to assume that he meant drunk, but I'm not sure. But it's called Tycho Kepler et al. From Roddy the Mammal. And he says, "Dear Ophidian siblings, some interesting facts about Tycho, Copernicus, and Kepler, and Feynman. According to my older brother, the correct pronunciation of Tycho Brahe's name is Beppo Abramowitz. Given the source, this might not be entirely true. At a fraternity party at MIT, a young Richard Feynman won a Halloween costume contest dressed as Tycho Brahe, wearing a silver nose and nothing else."
What?
A silver nose?
Yeah, because Brahe had a silver nose.
Because of his silver nose, Tycho received a yearly stipend from the king to sniff out and find werewolves. Kepler's mother was burned as a witch when it was discovered that she weighed the same as a duck. Her airspeed velocity was unknown.
It's only a model.
After a series of dizzy spells for a brief time, Tycho theorized that the sun, moon, stars, planets, and the earth revolved around him. So it's just a bunch of bad puns. In Midwestern Sanskrit, the name Nicholas Copernicus translates to mean warm pudding.
What?
Not only did he have a silver nose, but Tycho also had 2 brass balls, which he displayed on his desk to represent the earth and moon. Between his career change from religion to science, Kepler spent a brief time as a lute player in a goth revival band. What?
Goth revival.
As a graphic designer, I have some top 5. I have some top 5 minutes butchers, so it's easy for us to understand. Physics is hard to understand. Math is impossible to understand. P.S. I just bought Prisoner EP on iTunes. You know, if this podcast thing falls through, you can probably find some work as a musician.
That's sweet.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, that's the. As for being from Roddy the Mammal, that is definitely, it's got a lot of spelling errors. It's definitely not sober.
The most inebriated Roddy the Mammal email we've ever gotten.
That was a great email, in my opinion.
It's a perfect show for that email.
So yeah, I think he said he was not sober and he used speech to text. So that might be part of the reason why some of it's really hard to understand.
That's funny. He's just out there sitting on his back porch or by his fire with his cat, whatever he does, just like slurring into the phone. Just like,
Yeah.
It's just thinking about Brahe, Copernicus, and Kepler and going,
I wonder if he was actually saying, like,
here's one.
he's saying real facts, but when he finally looked at the speech to text translation, it was all messed up and he's like, send.
Yeah. I don't understand this second to last paragraph at all. As a graphic designer, I have some top 5 men's butchers.
Maybe he's saying he's really busy and he didn't have time to type it. He only had 5 minutes and he butchered it. I don't know.
Why is the graphic designer thrown in there?
Well, maybe some of his buddies went the butcher route, but he went graphic design.
Yeah, it's got to be a misunderstanding from speech to text. Some top 5 men's butchers, so it's easy for us to understand.
Maybe he's. I know what's happening. I know why he's doing speech to text.
Why is that?
Because he actually doesn't have any arms or legs.
Oh, because he's not a mammal.
Really a snake, dude.
He's a snake.
Been faking it.
So does the end of his tail hold down the button for talk to text?
Yeah,
I guess so. Okay, so this one is from, let's see, Andy from Germany. This is called Resonance Boxes in Egypt, Binaural Beats, Sonic Geometry, and Chladni Plate. It says, hey, you guys, so you go so in-depth with this, I love it. But during the second part of your sound data analysis, you missed out on a few things. So I think this might be in response to the episodes we did with, what's his name? One of the guys that we went to Egypt with.
Yes.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just.
Oh, no. the gentleman from Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sebastian.
Yeah.
I drew a blank there.
So he says the two frequencies, with one of them a little off, creating an interference pattern or beat, is the very concept of binaural beats.
Yes.
This dude thought this up 25 years ago and founded HemiSync. It is supposed to sync up your two brain hemispheres and help you to meditate. I tried it and it did nothing for me, but there are accounts of people who report being able to reach altered states of consciousness and even trigger out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, I've heard that too and read about it, and I have friends who have tried it and it works for them, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
You stated that the measurements of the space could be used to reduce the wavelength to 1/2, resulting in half-octave steps. There is a concept called sonic geometry. If you translate basic geometric shapes to frequencies, you always land on F sharp and C sharp. Triangle F sharp, the next one is a square, C sharp, pentagon is F sharp, and so on.
What is he saying? Reduce the wavelength to half-length frequencies? That's a higher octave. What is he? I'm not understanding.
He's talking about your description where when we were saying, you know, the to get a standing wave,
Yeah.
you have to the length of the space is half the length of the wave, right? Because then it comes back. Isn't that what it was? It was something you and maybe I'm saying it wrong, but you and Sebastian were talking about it.
Yeah, so the length, that's right. The length of the space is half the length of the actual wavelength.
Right. Yeah. That's what he's talking about.
Okay. That makes sense.
You stated that the measurements of the space could be used to reduce the wavelength to 1/2, resulting in half octave steps. It's just a strange way to say it.
Yeah, that does.
The Chladni plate experiment. You put sand on this plate, which is connected to an oscillator, making the plate vibrate. Then you go up in frequency, and at certain points, the grains of sand magically jump into position, forming these beautiful patterns which look a lot like sacred geometry. You really have to wonder on what scale this works, and if it's really understood what is happening there and achieve mastery over this technique, you could probably easily move really heavy objects or maybe alter your neural structures. Also, it has to be considered that the magnetic poles were flipped back then. Crichton makes a very compelling case for this. Keep on doing what you're doing. Cheers, Andy from Germany. So yeah, I wanted to read this because I'm not sure. He just says that we missed out on these things, and I'm not sure. I feel like we talked about most of this stuff. Yeah.
Well, maybe not in that episode, but definitely we've talked a lot about cymatics and how that, that affects, or cymatics is like studying cymatics using the Chladni plate in the sand. It gives you insight into resonance, like the geometry of resonance, and the properties of resonance.
It allows you to sort of visualize things.
It gives you a visualization of what's happening on the surface of the thing, and absolutely it teaches you about vibration of objects, and we definitely have talked about how you can move large objects using these principles.
Yep.
So maybe not in that episode, but it definitely has been something we've discussed for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
That reminds me of when you used to have sand or salt or something in a snare drum or a speaker base or something in the back.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a cymatic experiment.
That was the cymatics experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the setup in here. Well, I also had it in the
yeah.
background.
I guess it
You
was
had
in
it
here.
set up in what is now
cool.
Soul's room also.
I did. Yeah, that's right. That's why I just acquired
No, it
that.
was Lila's. It's Lila's room now, Brett.
Right. Yeah, so I did get another drum. I got an old tom, big floor tom
Yeah.
that I can.
We should do it again.
Yeah, the plan is to do it again, in my spare time.
Yeah, in your spare time?
Yeah,
All
in
that
spare
spare
time.
time you have lying around? Okay. So this is from, this one is from David, and I'm pretty sure this is the David that sent us the really long moon email that we did the Patreon episode on.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of maybe a, what would you call it? Like a summary of what he was trying to say with all the moon stuff, or what he thinks about it. So this is called Younger Dryas and the Moon, from David. Hi, Serpentine Brothers. You guys are awesome. Big fan of the show. I've always resonated with the topics you guys discuss on the podcast. My question is the following even possible? Okay, and so then he just lays this out. And
I like that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So this theory makes a case for introduction of the moon triggering crustal displacement and axial tilt being cause of the Younger Dryas. No doubt this would trigger cataclysmic events all around the world for a long duration of time. We're talking about raging fires across continental land masses, gigantic tidal waves destroying coastal settlements, volcanic eruptions across the entire globe, off-the-scale earthquakes on every fault line, raising and sinking of massive mountain ranges and lands around tectonic plates, long-lasting alteration of the Gulf Stream, worldwide floods of grand proportion, aka the Great Deluge, and on and on. I consider this as possible because of the strange but real anomalous data surrounding the astronomical and mathematical connections with the moon and the earth and the sun. Also, many oral wisdom traditions recall a time before the moon. An introduction of such a massive body would obviously throw the planet into utter and dark chaos in the ways listed above. And since there are oral stories, I believe the only recent enough cataclysmic events that fit the bill of the moon coming into orbit before there was no moon are the Younger Dryas cataclysms. Rock on, fellas, from David. Also, snakes!
That's cool. Unless the introduction of the moon was like hundreds of thousands of years ago and people were around then and somehow those oral traditions have passed on.
Yeah.
That
it depends
far.
on... Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
Right.
But again, 29 years in the jungle, folks, one guy.
Yeah, and if you look at Mario Buildrep's research, which by this point people have listened to that
Published that
episode.
show, yeah.
I mean, he thinks you can trace back architectural structures
Yeah.
to 300,000 to 400,000 years ago. So yeah, is it possible that stories could last that long? Especially if they get reinforced by a technologically advanced civilization for a while, then that collapses and they carry on as stories and they get reinforced again.
Yeah. That also, in that episode, the thing that we didn't talk about really was the maps.
Yeah.
The maps of the ancient sea kings that show the coast of Antarctica,
Yeah.
ice free.
Yeah.
That they came from like really old sources, and we don't really know how far back those sources go.
Yeah, it seemed to me like some of that, because kind of at the end we got this sort of a Sitchin-esque thing coming from him.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking that some of his work is probably, I don't know, I need to get the Hapgood stuff and read The Path of the Pole. Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings is one thing, but The Path of the Pole is the other Hapgood one. I think Randall's mentioned that one.
I'll check that out.
Yeah. So it made me want to read those books again. And,
so really, in a nutshell, this guy that we interviewed last week, if you hadn't listened to the episode, he's done all this data collecting on the orientations of ancient sites all over the world and is charting their orientations towards the North Pole, right? So he's got like all these structures that line up and they're pointing at the North Pole and they intersect at the North Pole from all different parts of the world. And then there's all these other structures that are not aligned to the North Pole, but they intersect at another place that's like further south down in Greenland from the North Pole, and then another collection of them that are.
I've seen like a.
So there's like he's got like 5 poles positioned just based on the northern facing alignments of ancient structures all over the world.
Okay.
So it's really interesting, and he has methods of kind of looking at comparing these to ice core data of ice ages and interstadial periods and and they kind of line up with the distances of these poles. So he has this idea that it may go back 400,000 years to the earliest known hominids or Homo sapiens sapiens.
That's right. Yeah.
Really cool stuff.
But I also want to say, because going back to the email and the question, because the first thing he does here is list all of these cataclysmic events, tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, huge earthquakes, all this stuff. It isn't necessarily true that a moon showing up would have to be that cataclysmic unless it got really close first. I mean, if the moon got into orbit gently, it wouldn't necessarily cause all those problems, I think. It's not causing those problems right now, right? So it depends on how it showed up. But if it came in and it was in a degrading orbit that came really close and then went far out and really close, and then that slowly circularized, then yeah, every time it had a really close pass, it could cause problems. But I just don't know how. It
would
just
seem-
depends on like how close could it get before it was.
Would seem extremely unlikely that it would come in alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of, I would have to look into that kind of capture. You know, like how would the Earth even capture an object of that size?
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Right. With the moon in general is that it has such a nice regular orbit.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did it get there? It's so huge. It'd be one thing if it was a small little potato
Right.
that the Earth could force it into a nice orbit.
Yeah.
But it's so huge. How did it become so regular, its orbit, and tidally locked? It's
Yeah,
just
because a little
strange.
potato can get close without causing a whole bunch of problems and basically breaking apart or breaking the other body apart. But the moon is so enormous that the most likely thing for a body like that is for it to just do one pass.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's not going to get captured unless it's moving really slow relative to the Earth. And they ease up on each other, and then the moon gets caught in this nice, gentle, circularized orbit over time. In other words, it doesn't cause cataclysmic events in that scenario, I think. I don't know.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But it seems like, going back to the question about the time before the moon, but I've read some of those oral traditions as well, and I don't think that do they associate enormous cataclysmic events with the arrival of the moon? I don't remember.
I don't either.
None that I can remember offhand.
Yeah, that doesn't mean they didn't. I'm just saying, if you want to tie this into oral wisdom traditions of a time before the moon, it seems like those oral traditions would also say the moon showed up and then everything went to hell.
Maybe they died while telling the story.
Yeah.
Before they got to the
Wait, I thought the other one. I thought the other
It does
theory
make sense.
where the moon is a piece of the Earth was that the catastrophic event would happen first, then the moon would.
Yeah, that's the standard model is that
Yeah.
the moon came from the Earth, but
Yeah.
that we're talking that's 4 billion years ago. So this is
Yeah, the standard model says it happened long before life was on the planet.
because no life could survive that event.
Exactly.
Even-
That's what I was
so
saying.
even if
you
there
went
was
that
life-
theory, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Even if there was life, it was gone
Yep.
after that event.
Yep.
Yeah.
So here's something I never thought about with regards to the moon. If we're talking a time prior to the moon, does that imply placid oceans without tide?
Yeah, that's the other
Yes.
thing is that there's tidal evidence going back a long way. So it's hard to say. I mean, there would be tides. They would just be extremely mild because they would be solar. They'd be caused by the sun, not the moon.
Yeah.
Not like several feet in water level changes like we have now.
Yeah, many feet. Many. Yeah. So I don't know. There are evidence of, I'm pretty sure evidence of tides going back a long way. So I'm not sure what that means in terms of the moon's arrival.
So yeah, we just need to ask Randall. We don't want to know about the moon necessarily. Just tell us, what do you know about before the moon?
Did you ask him about the moon in Montana?
Not in Montana, but
Okay.
the first Scablands
You
that I
did?
went on.
Yeah.
He sat down at the picnic table with.
Oh,
me.
that's right. You guys had a moon discussion out there. Yeah.
Well, basically, all he said was that he's never not talking about the moon.
Yeah.
It was great.
Okay. Oh, because somebody asked him to talk about
Yeah,
it.
so I don't remember how we got.
That's a great
I don't remember
response.
how we got there, but we got
I do
there.
remember that, yeah.
And I was just
Never
like,
not
"Oh, that's
talking
great."
about the moon.
I'm never not talking about the
Oh,
moon,
okay,
Laura.
So the moon is always behind every discussion.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. This is another one from the animator and fiddler, David or William March.
The Mad Fiddler.
Yeah, David March, the animator and fiddler.
Well, he's Mad Fiddler in the comments section
Yes.
on the website, so
Yeah.
that's what I call him.
Okay, this
Mad-
is my
Mad
first
Fiddler.
hearing about this guy, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so this is It says, Dear Snake Bros, people need to hear the healing sound of genuinely joyful laughter, along with the buttload quantities of wisdom you so carefully sift and gather and share. Your cheerful response, even to your own adversities, makes it easier for us listeners. Listening to your podcast sure kept me sane through some aggravations this week, struggling through an architectural render for my nephew to use to persuade his landlord to allow some mods. With all my professional pens, pencils, drafting tools, tape, and paper socks in storage because I idiotically thought I would be in a new place by now. Lots of broken field running, shocking abuse of inanimate objects, and blaspheming. But it's done.
Wow.
All right, got the job done. All right,
Yeah.
good job, everybody.
Throwing stuff against the wall. In episode number 123, you posed the question, why is this happening in terms of the growth in your listening audience? I think at least partly because, one, the mainstream academic orthodoxy and some of the professional science community have taken psychological refuge in the materialist and reductionist model. They take inexplicable comfort in meaninglessness. Two, lots of them treat anyone without a PhD as stinky peasants. And three, but a whole lot of regular folks, many of whom have just as many creases in their gray matter as those PhDs and pursue different goals and interests with just as much passion and OCD, are not persuaded that we or the universe are products of a mechanistic accident. We strongly suspect a spiritual basis for existence, and that the allegedly material universe is simply one aspect of reality, not the totality of our destiny.
Well said.
Yes, very
I
good.
strongly suspect the existence of a spiritual realm,
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
So thanks for all the work you do, from David March.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the way
Wow,
you said
that
that.
was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're welcome. And thank you.
Send me some mad fiddling, damn it.
Yeah, where's the...
Yeah, I want to.
He sends art pictures in lots of these, and they're hilarious and great and very detailed and well done. But yeah, we want to hear some fiddle. What's going on?
Yeah, bro.
But yeah,
So-
I think that, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and more and more these days, I want to just I just feel like, I don't know, the idea of fighting with skeptics is just not in my interests. I just have less and less interest in it, and less even talking or thinking about the way they think about stuff. Sometimes it's necessary. But so like before we started the podcast, Kyle and I used to have these huge conversations, and I'd come down here to talk to him about something. And the way I would approach almost every subject I was interested in was from the perspective of here's how I feel like the
Skeptics have it
skeptical
wrong.
people are looking at it in totally the wrong way, and sometimes this caused confusion in the
We'd
discussions.
have big arguments
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And so the more that time goes on and the longer we do this, the less I'm even interested in. And this is so in other words, what I'm saying is Kyle was at this point years and years ago, and I'm finally getting there, is where I'm just like, I don't really care what they think about it.
Yeah.
So I see this in a lot of emails, and it's coming through. And
That's not to say, though, just to add to what you're saying, it's not to say that a skeptic can't have good points and can't have, like in other words, we have our favorite, materialist reductionist
sure,
physicist podcast,
yeah,
right? And we listen to these guys, and because you can learn a lot. So it's not to say that you don't care what they think. It's just, it's not of interest, particularly their skepticism as to
okay. Let me put it this way:
alternative views of things.
not caring what they think means it doesn't make me mad anymore.
Yeah,
it used to
yeah,
really
yeah.
piss
Okay,
me
I
off.
get it.
I would get all worked
I
up
get
and
it.
bent out of shape about how I felt like, because it was, and that colors your entire attitude on even trying to look at the subject,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So
Because it's like annoying.
yes, so the less I care about how annoying they are, the less annoying it is, and so I can sort of approach these subjects without that always floating in the back of your mind about because a lot of times with me, and I'm sure this happens to many people, is the first thing you think of when you're looking through some of these topics is you're already mad about how the standard model people are going to approach this subject.
Yeah.
And that takes up a whole lot of energy. So just whatever. Like
Yeah.
to me, it's like the more I do this, the less I really am worried about what they think about it. And it's just fun and interesting to poke into these subjects ourselves. I'm interested in some cases, like with Feynman and other people. Sean Carroll, even though Sean Carroll's way, what I would say, worse than Feynman in terms of his openness to what might be going on with the universe. But Carroll is a great resource, you know.
Yes.
And listening to his insights, if you can get past how he states things categorically a lot of times. But the other thing is I don't know enough to say that he shouldn't be stating something categorically, you know. So I just, whatever. I listen to him, and there's like all these interesting nuggets.
That's what I'm talking about.
You know?
Yeah, you just got to let the other stuff go.
You got to cut the fat off the meat.
Yeah. Cut the fat off the meat. That's what I've been saying for
And
years.
take the fat.
It's really
Cut the fat off the meat and eat that fat.
it's funny to hear you say that, Russ, because I remember when you first pulled me through the looking glass, we would have like these hour-long sessions of pointing at all things in the model and be like, and what about that?
Yeah.
And then they say this, and then look at this.
Yep.
And it was like a mutual feeding rant.
Yeah.
Like a building fire.
Yeah.
But I think it was good because it got a lot of it out of my system, and I think yours too.
Yeah.
And now every time I come across that same kind of garbage, I'm like, oh, it's going to be that kind of article. Well, all right.
Yeah, and I'm not saying saying that people shouldn't do this. I'm just saying that, I don't know, in my personal path in this, I feel like I'm leaving that part of the whole process.
Yeah.
Just like I don't care what they think about it anymore. All I'm interested in is like, what do I think about it? What does Kyle think about it? What are people who are not like that? What do they think about it? Can we have those kinds of? Can we have conversations with people who have certificates of ignorance? You know, because they're going to come to it with an openness to speculation and whatever. So that's what I mean, is that I feel like a lot of energy can be wasted being mad.
Yeah, I agree.
And I say that from personal experience.
And like everybody has their inner skirp, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
Because like I have, for example, I'll have ways that I feel like I understand something. And then when a new idea is presented, and then we start to kind of like kick around ideas on how it could work or how could it be that way? You're running it through the gears of the models that you've built in your mind of how you think stuff works, right? So you've got your own, like, you know, somebody else throws an idea and you're like, no, that doesn't fit because this thing works this way. So everybody has a little bit of that built in.
Yeah.
It's just, so it's like, what you're saying is not getting emotional about like the fact that somebody else sees it in a different way. They see it in a different way. They have a model in their head. They see it in a different way. And then trying to understand that model. Right.
Yeah. Except that it's not the same because, well, I mean, I sort of see what you're saying, but like you might have a different model than me, you know, but you aren't the mainstream.
Right.
You aren't the mainstream science guy where in most people's minds, they've got themselves up on a pedestal and they're looking down their noses at anybody who doesn't think that way. That's a completely different situation.
You're saying you just got to let go of that anger. And you're trying not to be mad about it.
Yeah. Not to get worked up about it. In other words, like, and I'm saying this specifically to David here, because David has written a lot of emails and has done a lot of communication. He's written many comments and I see this anger.
Yeah.
He's mad at the mainstream. And so it's just made me think about it.
On being right.
Okay, wait a minute.
I think is the issue. Like anybody who insists that they're correct is obviously wrong.
No. Well,
like you can't insist upon your own correctness. Like if you're going to try to force your model onto everyone because it's right, then that's problematic. Like that's the thing that bugs me. If somebody's absolutely sure that they're right, I instantly look at them like, dude, you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, you instantly distrust it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that as well.
I get what you're saying.
But I'm more talking about the you know, there's kind of an inner battle with what you feel like is maybe an institutional thing.
Yeah.
That's where it That's where it gets like a big waste of energy. It's one thing you could discuss this stuff with somebody who is a standard model person and they can be absolutely sure and you can still have a good conversation. Sometimes not, sometimes not. But
the absolute surety is like it's roadblocks to discussion.
Sure. Yeah. All I'm saying is in my personal growth in this path, I feel like that has become more and more to me. I'm just like, all right, I feel like that's a waste of energy.
Yeah. I'm really happy for you, Russ.
I agree. So,
That's great.
David, I guess I misunderstood your name. I thought the Mad Fiddler was like this crazy fiddler, but no, you're actually just mad. So, maybe in the future, after you get this out of your system and you're on
Just let
episode
it go,
200,
bro.
you can just be like, I'm the calm fiddler.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a very serious question for you, Russ. If you and Kyle and I go looking for fossils in limestone again, does this mean that when Kyle and I find fish, you're not going to be standing there going, "You can't know that"?
I didn't find any fish. What are you talking about?
Fish, dude. We found fish, bro.
Don't know what you're talking about.
You mean I won't insist that that you can't know that they're fish, which is what you were saying?
Well, that's asking a little much, but I wouldn't expect that.
No.
I just thought
Was
you'd be
I here
calmer.
for this?
No one was here for this, Laura.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that the Watcher does.
Yeah.
He brings up things that no one was here for.
Wow.
Then we have no way to figure anything.
Well, he's specifically talking about when we would go fossil hunting, and then him and Kyle would start seeing like animals in the clouds in some of the rocks, or at least he would. Kyle didn't do it so much, but the whole that
But
cloud.
Kyle would look at it and
that
he'd be
cloud
like,
looks like a
yeah, I
fish."
mean, it might be. It could be.
And I would say that too. I'm like, yeah, but you were like telling me it was a fish, and I'm like, dude, you can't possibly know if that's a fish.
Yeah.
And then you would keep insisting that it's a fish, and then eventually I'd be like, you can't know that it's a fish. Yeah. So no.
All right, so you're still going to yell at me. That's
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Like by the 10th time you come up and ask me if it's a fish, I'm going to be shouting. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, so back to the email again. I really like the way you put the end here, David. Like Kyle said, taking out the stuff where you're angry. And you're just saying we are not persuaded that we or the universe are products of mechanistic accident, and we strongly suspect a spiritual basis for existence, and that the allegedly material universe is simply one aspect of reality, not the totality of our destiny. That's really, really great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Another break?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Fastest something of something.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. The #1 podcast on the internet for trashing people who write to us.
Stepped right on in it.
We love you guys so much, but it's so much fun to kind of give you some shit.
You're.
We give each other
you're-
so much shit, though, in our friend group, in our
Yeah,
family.
you're welcome into the family if you're getting shit.
It is.
Yeah.
Nonstop pile
Take
up.
your shit.
So-
Gotta learn how to take your shit.
Yeah.
If you can help it, take it as an endearing.
Yeah, the grand
Roasting.
prize at the end of the road is a spaceship.
Okay. Couple more emails here. Well, we got a bunch more actually, but let's see how many we can get through. This is from Patrick. It's called Just to Say Thank You.
Whatever.
Patrick,
No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Says, hope this email finds your 10 by 10 tangent cube of science well. My name is Patrick. I live in England in, let's see, how do you say this one? Staffordshire?
It's probably Staffordshire.
I can't remember which one makes them mad, but one of them does.
So we should use the one that makes them mad.
I think it's Staffordshire.
Yeah. It's probably Staffordshire.
yeah, that sounds like
Is the right one. I think
that
that's
sounds
the
like a
correct-
triggery one.
No, I think that's the correct one.
Oh,
I think that the complaint is like it's not, we're not hobbits.
Yeah, they're not
living in a
They were like,
shire.
we're not freaking hobbits. This is not a shire.
Oh, don't
Yeah.
say Shire. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then
But
why
there's
did
at least
Tolkien
one of them
call
where
it
you're
the
supposed to
Shire?
say Shire. Yeah, I know.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, I live in England, and I'm 49, and I love your show, and I came about the reverse route compared to most I found. Ben, Uncharted X, and then you guys, then Rogan, and then Randall.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, look at that.
About 5 years ago, from out of the blue, I started to suffer from anxiety and lost all direction on what and where I wanted to be in life. I always had a background interest in the ancient world before us and always knew there was more to the story that was being told. That said, trying to find like-minded people was like trying to find reasoning in Zahi Hawass. But I continued on my quest, and what little I learned or thought I had learned I would tell my patient wife and bored her to tears, and my kids also with my constant rambling about it. Then I found you guys and Ben almost simultaneously, and instantly it was like a light being switched on. I was not alone in my yearning for the knowledge of the ancients and the ever-constant thirst for knowledge on how these great feats were achieved, and my anxiety levels dropped tenfold.
Wow, that's cool.
I listen to you guys while I work alone. I'm a bedroom furniture installer, and your podcasts, of which I've now devoured most of them, have a wit and a humor and hunger and lust for this subject that you guys can only bring. It is a breath of fresh air. Don't ever stop what you do. Love your swapcasts with Ben, and hope the future brings us answers. We can only keep looking for the tools of our ancestors, but we might have to accept that they might be off-world, and I say that with a hint of maybe. Again, thank you from Pat. P.S. If I could win the lottery, I would be with you guys and Ben in a flash on your next Egypt adventure. Till then, keep it up.
Hell yeah, Patrick.
Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate that. That's cool.
Might be off-world.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, kind of went through a similar situation, like when we first really were deep diving into all this stuff. But Russ was always there, so I could talk to Russ. And
Yeah.
the Watcher, but there was a period of time where it was kind of like hard to, because I was just so into all of this stuff, and then that's all I wanted to talk about with anybody, but then they were just like, what the hell are you talking about?
Maybe this was not the time that I'm remembering, but I remember a time where I would be like, babe, what are you getting at? Like, you'd go on for a while, and then I'm like,
so I try to give you all the details.
Like I was trying
what
to
is the point?
I felt like my brain kept trying to just like get what.
I mean,
Where are we going?
You can't just walk up to your wife and be like, long heads have been running the world forever.
And I'm open. I'm like, okay, tell me all about it. Like, I want to know. But eventually I'm like, where are we going?
No, she did actually teach me that this is actually what I need to do. Is like I start with the crazy statement that I'm afraid to say outright without.
Yeah.
And then
you don't have to ease me
giving
into
the supporting
it.
evidence.
I married you. Just hit me with it.
You need to have a conversation with Marty, because I feel like he's afraid to do that too. Like he can't just come out and say he wants to give you 8 episodes of details before he's even going to say,
You just gotta, you gotta get it out there first.
Yeah. I've been trying to tell him, like, you need to make your claims, or at least say where you're going.
She compared it to, she came to me and was like, listen, when, like in a college course or whatever, if somebody's going to give a lecture on something, they give you the thesis first.
Yeah, the summary.
And then they start giving you all the supporting evidence. I'm like, okay. But first I got triggered and I was like, this is not a college course. I'm not a professor.
But dude, I'm like open to, was always so open to like, tell me what you got. Like, let me hear it.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't know how to communicate it. That was the biggest problem.
Just organize it. Like,
So we
give
worked
it to
on
me,
it.
but organize it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's funny. I remember, like about 10 years ago, someone saying to me, "Hey man, have you talked to Russ lately?" I'm like, "No, why? What's up?" "I was at a party at Kyle's and he just kept talking about pyramids and aliens and crazy shit." And I was just like, "Whoa!" And the first thought I had was, "Dude, I need to hang out with Russ. It's been a while."
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
And so
That would have been.
so like I went out there.
Yeah.
And you showed me that episode of Ancient Aliens, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna be that guy at the party talking about pyramids and all this crazy shit."
Yeah.
Dude, so we used to have the projector in the living room, and They pulled me in there and put Ancient Aliens on that projector. And the first time I saw that alien guy, I was just like, yes, dude. The aliens guy.
You're talking about Giorgio?
Yes.
The
I
hair?
was just like, yes. Yes. Let's do this.
Yeah. So let's see. Was there something else I wanted to respond to with that email? I thought there was one more thing. Oh, yeah. You said, hope the future brings us answers.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Nail him.
Not going to nail him. But I will say that on this podcast, we think of it, or at least I think of it more as like refining the questions. And I feel like that just makes the whole endeavor, I don't know, more productive.
Yeah.
You do hope there are answers out there, but there's not really an end to something like an answer. A good answer should actually just develop a whole bunch more questions. So, but people mean different things when they say, well, I hope we find the answers. I've seen people say this in multiple different ways. Like, I want to find the answers, or I'm looking for the answers. And that means a bunch of different things to different people. But for me, it's always been, it's the mysteries are great. And I think that the mysteries themselves they open you up to looking at the world with just kind of a wider view. Like they
make you ask other questions, right?
Yeah.
Like you see the first thing that like takes you down the rabbit hole. You're like, wait a minute, because it has connections to other things that you thought you knew.
Yeah.
And then you start questioning those. Right.
Yeah.
So it just, like you're saying,
Yeah.
it's really the pursuit of the questions.
Yes. It's the pursuit of the questions. And that's what I mean. It's like the world without mystery is a boring world,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
Like if imagine if you think way in the future and like, oh, science has been figured out and we have all the answers. Well, who wants to?
Yeah.
Is that going to be any fun?
But another way
Yeah.
to look at that is that it's more the philosophy of, can we actually ever really know the answer? So if you decide that there are definite answers and you're going to get them, then maybe you'll be fooled.
Yeah, that's
And then you'll end up in the same position that so many, that like a lot of people feel like the standard model is in. It's like, okay, we've got all these answers.
Yeah. It's a trap. That's what I mean. It's like the people who think the standard model has all the answers are trapped in it, and it's people like Feynman and other really great scientists who like really know the standard model really well, that they understand that it doesn't have all the answers.
Right. They understand where the questions are.
Yeah. And so Feynman, gives all these lectures when what he's trying to do is say, look, here's all this stuff we've figured out, but look at all these places where we have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And
he tried to.
These are the places you're digging in.
Yeah. And he tried to point out that he did, at least at the end, he felt like this was kind of an age of discovery and it isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
But that's just in physics, right? It's just because.
And he pointed that out too.
Yeah. Just because you may find all the answers in physics, if that's even possible, there's going to be plenty of other mysteries to explore. But I'm just saying, I've always felt like, not always, but I feel like the search for answers is, I don't know, I like to think of it better as looking for questions, looking for the right questions.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Maybe
it's really, when I back up and think about this, just you mentioned Feynman and looking, all the physics research and everything that's been, all of the energy that's been put in to try to figure out how everything works in this universe. It's just crazy to think that like we've put all this energy in and so many minds are just digging and digging and digging, and the mystery just keeps expanding and getting further beyond our reach.
Yeah.
And it's like, how amazing that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it can be so beautiful in so many respects, and then when you actually do find something that's true, it is simple.
Yeah.
And that's just, God, I totally agree with Feynman in that there is such a great beauty in that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Barry. The title is Couldn't Come Up with Something Witty. Greetings, Russ, Kyle, and the Watcher. I hope that this email finds you and your families well. I discovered your podcast from Cosmographia, and if I may, Randall Carlson is spot on with his work, and he is blessed to have the group he has formed with the two of you being among it. I am just wanting to reach out and say I have been fascinated with Nephas and pyramids for most of my adult life. However, something clicked in the last 4 years, and I have jumped off the cliff with this information. Sometimes I feel like I look like a crazy person when I start vomiting pyramid and butt flap awesomeness. I live here in the Bitterroot Valley in Montana. Listening to you and Randall has changed my perspective of the landscape that I drive around here in the Rockies. All levity aside, I would like to get semi-heavy for a minute. At 39 years of age, I have lost both of my fathers this last calendar year, one from cancer, one from dementia. The relationship that you boys have with your father makes me smile. Make sure you take every moment you can to show your appreciation. Tomorrow comes sooner than we think. Now for a lighter note, December 2021, I had to drive my father's belongings from Florida back here to Montana, and I took the opportunity to see the Mississippian culture mounds along the Mississippi River. I was able to see Winterville Mound, the Toltec Mounds in Arkansas, and my favorite was Poverty Point in Louisiana. If you've not heard of Poverty Point, it is a very interesting mound site for you to research. Earliest evidence was 1800 BC, and it ended in 1100 BC. No bodies, no burials, and apparently housed 20,000 people. The only evidence is stone artifacts. This is a mystery. In my opinion, it felt more of a military outpost, which was repurposed or heavy trade was going on, maybe. They were sourcing copper from above the Great Lakes. I am a chef by trade, and I am opening a new tap house and restaurant called The Hops here in Victor, Montana. In the future, if the two of you are traveling through, I would love to buy you all the beer and get to meet you. I feel after episode 108 that I have become one with the snakes. Some things to look at. The podcast Earth Ancients, Cliff Dunning, does an amazing job interviewing the best of the best in the fields that you two speak of, including Randall Carlson. Yep, we're familiar with Earth Ancients. Yep. Also is a novel that I read when I was a teenager that was the spark of my interest in this stuff. It's called Decipher. Oddly, the author has only written one other piece according to Wikipedia, which was a movie script known as Formula 51 with Samuel L. Jackson and Robert Carlyle. Funny and worth the watch. Thank you and your whole team for what you do. It has helped me, and I'm sure many others, get through troubled times. Also, $50 Dynasty is fantastic. Procession is my new favorite album.
Oh, man. Thank you, buddy.
Epoch sings to me every time. Keep up the good work. Keep on laughing. The world can use it. Cheers from Barry.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, Epoch, bro. God, that's one of my favorite, top favorites on that album, too.
Beautiful email.
Yeah, that's a great email.
Yeah, 1100 AD. You see that number, that time crop up.
Yeah, he said BC, but maybe he meant AD.
Oh, really? 1100 BC?
It said earliest evidence was 1800 BC, and it ended in 1100 BC.
Oh, that's
no bodies, no burials.
Well, I am totally wrong about that. I was like, wow, that's a cool connection because 1100 AD is like when the Pueblo people vanished and when the Gothic cathedral building era stopped and vanished. And
yeah, Watcher, can you look that up? Poverty Point, is it 1800 AD or BC and 1100 BC or AD?
Yeah, it would end in AD or BC.
Yeah.
Because, but
Watcher?
So 700 years, right? That would be 700 years, 1800 BC to 1100 BC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, because the Pueblo culture was 600 AD to 1100 AD.
Yeah.
So he's probably
he's
right. I think we might have lost the watch.
So
there he is.
It says that the stonework structures were built during a 600-year period.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would probably be the 18 to 1100. It doesn't necessarily say if the activity stopped then, but the building of all the stonework.
Yeah, 600-year period.
Supposedly during a 600-year window.
From when to when? In the BC? Yeah. Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Thought I saw a cool connection, but it doesn't exist.
I'm looking at a picture here, and there's actually terraced ridges that are obviously cut away, like C-shaped. It looks like the terracing in Peru.
Oh yeah,
honestly, which is, and it's all grown over now, but you can still see it. concentric shelves, all the same size, probably going down a hillside, maybe like 70 feet.
Yeah.
One,
But again,
two,
it's
three,
interesting
four,
how he
five,
points
6
out.
rings.
Supposedly, it housed, it was a town or something that had up to 20,000 people in it, but there's no burials, no bodies.
Yeah, nobody's to be
Yeah, that's
found
pretty
anywhere
crazy.
in the area.
That's weird.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Jack. It says, brothers and sister of the snake.
Hey.
If you boys or your family are up near me on the New York-Pennsylvania border, definitely reach out. The town that I live in has an interesting mound that was definitely a religious or cultural center for the local Native Americans, which were part or connected to the Iroquois. Today, we call that mound Spanish Hill. There is a lot of ancient history in the area, as well as a rich history since the creation of our country. Add to that, about an hour and a half to the southwest is a small town of Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. Just south of that is something they call the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. Being that you've gone to the Scablands with Randall, I think you would be interested to see how the locals know nothing about what cataclysm actually created that Grand Canyon. I thought I would recommend you come up to the Grand Canyon in the fall, only so you can see how beautiful it is. An hour north of here is Ithaca, which is at the bottom of the Finger Lakes. In Ithaca is where the great astronomer Carl Sagan is buried. And just as a side note, along one of the lakes is a small cemetery which holds the headstone for Rod Serling. I would surely make sure that all of you eat well if you were to come here.
Oh, okay.
And though I'm sure you deal with enough wine in your lives, the wine of the Finger Lakes is definitely becoming more popular.
Hey.
From Jack.
Okay.
Yeah, we like to try wines from different regions.
Sure,
We're a new wine region.
Hey, everything he said we like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put them in the red book.
Years
Thank you,
ago,
buddy.
I was actually in that part of New York with my family near the racetrack in Seneca. They have several wineries. Pretty good stuff from what I remember.
Cool. Yeah, I love people, like they're looking around their local areas and finding all the cool
Yeah.
stuff. That's exactly what you got to
that's
do.
the way to do it.
Yeah. All right, this is from Robert. It says, hello, Snake Bros. This is the first email I have ever sent. Wow. You've never sent an email before.
And you got picked to be read on the show.
I mean, he's never emailed
This
anyone
guy.
ever. It's the
Oh,
very first
God.
email he's ever sent. I hope it reaches you, he says. Concerning the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, I recently heard that you would like to visit it on a winter solstice. I have also heard you talk about the Fort Ancient people who built, quote unquote, built the mound. I wanted to make you aware that the Fort Ancient people lived at Fort Ancient, hence their name. Fort Ancient is a beautiful site atop a neighboring hill close to the Great Serpent Mound. It has the most beautiful 5-mile hiking trail with many geological features around the base of the hill. Sitting atop the hill is an ancient structure with many astronomical alignments. A single afternoon will not be enough for you to explore both of these areas.
Okay. Duly noted.
Yes.
2 days.
Also, there are the
days.
remains of the largest pyramid in North America in Ohio, not very far from the Newark earthworks. The aforementioned pyramid was torn down and the stones used to build nearby Buckeye Lake.
Oh.
I have listened to all of Rogan's podcasts and listened to all of Cosmography, and I'm now making my way through your back catalog. If possible, please let me know that you have received this. No.
Yes, we were letting you know now.
A contact at the cabin event in Central Ohio with you guys at Randall and Brad would be amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to have to make that happen. Watcher, do you have anything to say about pyramids being taken down to build a lake?
Is the lake made of liquid mercury?
Was there a
No,
vote?
but this is one of these things that the Watcher always points out. Like,
Yeah,
when
of course. They flooded the area.
Oh, yeah, the
They
fact
build a
that- yeah.
dam and
Yeah.
flood the area next to like incredible ancient sites.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
dude,
so-
Lake Roy Hubbard, right next to Rockwall.
Yeah,
Let's
this is-
talk about it.
But the Watcher has
Everywhere, all the time.
has a beautiful conspiracy theory that all man-made lakes were done to
Cover
for
up.
two purposes.
Yeah.
One, create power, and the other to cover up ancient structures that they don't want us to look at.
That's right. That's
but
right.
weren't
Dude,
some
so
of the
many-
pyramids also
honestly-
creating power?
That's the point, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're hiding the fact that they were using pyramids to make power by building lakes to make
Yeah.
power.
Okay. All right. It's my first time hearing it.
But dude, that's good advice. I can't wait to get up there. And I don't think that the Fort Ancient people built Serpent Mound. I don't know who built Serpent Mound.
Yeah.
But
it might
I
have
know
been it might have been known about and maintained by them for a while,
Yeah.
but it could be a very old structure.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, we probably have mentioned it because isn't that the standard story? One of them.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But I just know what I do remember is that whatever the standard story is, I question it.
Yeah.
Because they're basing it on,
I would
burials.
love to see the standard story on the bookshelf in the. I would love to go to Barnes and Noble.
And see the standard story.
Yeah. Just see the standard story on the shelf.
It's everything
Written
that's
by
on the shelf.
Temple Tombs.
Yeah.
So I got another one from this guy, Robert. And reading through
Second email he's ever
Wow.
sent.
This is good.
and I'm reading it because I'm reading this. I remember seeing this now, but it's been a while. But he is actually saying it was the very first email he's ever sent.
Wow.
Whoa.
It made it, dude.
You guys thought I was joking.
Success. And it traveled far. Like it really.
So it says, laughing stupidity and questions. Hello, Snake Bros. It's me, the Ohio Moose. First of all, episode 133, calling out the weightlifter guy and his shake weight. I have never laughed so hard at any podcast.
Work out longer.
Yeah. Then he says, stupidity. The last email I sent was all composed in the subject line. My bad.
We've heard that before.
Classic rookie mistake.
Wow.
After hearing you call out Angie on this, I learned my lesson. Needs to jump. I said, Angie! Angie!
Totally empty email.
Now then, he says, I started my work life as a carpenter, moved on to welder, built structural steel, then houses. Currently, I build trailers. I do not have much time for research, so I pose this question to fellow builders. The pyramid builders that they found, according to what I have heard, they were all in remarkably good health, treated well, and they were not slaves. I ask this because has anyone seen a medical report on these guys? Because if their hands ain't all effed up, they didn't build that. You guys, as well as I and Snake Dad, all know that just handling stones like that would take a toll on your hands because we all know OSHA safety procedures were followed while building those pyramids, right? Moving giant stuff. So that's a great point. Like, were their hands messed up?
Oh man, you get a brand new pair of
Sheepskin
nice leather gloves. And you're just like, yeah, dude, these are awesome.
As long as they had
And
sheep,
then you
they're
start
good to go.
No, you're not. No, this is my point. As soon as you start moving rocks with these gloves, holes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're moving rocks with the gloves, and the next thing you know, like all of your fingers have holes in them,
the gloves. The glove fingers. Yeah.
and your fingers,
And your fingers.
and you're just like, I ruined this brand new pair of
Fingerless
awesome
gloves.
gloves.
No, I have fingers.
Yeah,
but-
everyone was using fingerless gloves.
That's right. That's the pyramid builders. Fingerless
Fingerless gloves, dude.
It was
That's what it is.
it was in the 80s.
Sheepskin gloves. We're obviously rural people.
Aren't those what the?
I do think, but I think it's a great point. He's basically saying, and it's he's being a little sarcastic and funny about it, but they're saying, okay, because there's this thing with the standard model. They're like, they weren't slaves. These workers that built the pyramids were treated very well. They were healthy. And he's like, well, what's the medical report? Like, were their hands messed up? What about their feet?
Yeah.
No, they were
You
given a
can't-
pair of
I
gloves
don't-
every year for Christmas.
It's like basically what Kyle is trying to point out with the gloves thing, and what
Yeah.
they're saying is like, we're treated very well in terms of workers, but you still mess yourself up doing this kind of work.
exactly.
If you spent your life working on a pyramid and carrying and dragging giant blocks around using ropes and sleds, you're going to have injuries.
Yeah, and some flat fingers.
Yeah.
At least.
Oh, dude, could you imagine?
And people
rope
are gonna
burn
die
if
on
you
the
were
job.
dragging those stones.
Yeah, but you're gonna be ripped.
Yeah. You are going to be ripped.
You're gonna be ripped.
Okay, so moving on with the email. Moving giant stuff. If Tesla was correct about energy transfer through the earth, why couldn't all the copper chisels have been copper wire laid along each side of a road in a wavelength established through the ground to produce a resonance that would counteract the weight of the object they were moving? No, Kyle, the object move would act like the reflector dish. He's arguing with you.
Wait a minute. Tell me this theory again. Start over.
Okay, so in other words, all this copper, instead of chisels, could have been wire laid along each side of a road and a wavelength established through the ground, like Tesla was talking about, to produce a resonance that would counteract the weight of the object they were moving. So I don't know. Like Tesla talked about multiple kinds of resonances, but
Well, wait, what was he arguing with me about?
it says no, Kyle. The object being moved would act as the reflector dish.
Okay, fine.
Anyway, he says, I am new to this email thing. My first email was concerning Ohio's Great Serpent Mound, the Fort Ancient People, Giants, and a Great Pyramid. I know you guys do not use Facebook, but I posted some videos there hoping to get your attention so you could take plenty of time for exploration of said monuments. Please bear with me as I do not know how to use Twitter yet, so some of the things I'm trying to share with you and the rest of the Snake Force will be posted there. Yours, Snakefully, from the Great North American Hairless Moose.
Ah, the moose.
Robert.
Thank you so much.
That's cool.
Man, you learned how to send emails just so you can reach out to us.
Dude,
That's great. And this is the best way, I really have to say. This is the
Great
best
honor.
way. So if you get to this episode and you hear, this is really the best way to get a hold of us. And we will respond to them on air, if we decide to read them.
Well, only if they're good.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, Russ has to sort through.
I have to have standards. Yeah.
So, yeah, there are some standards.
Yeah.
So don't start slacking because those two are really good.
But it would be interesting if a lot of the copper that they were finding was originally for electrical devices.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
then later people took the copper and hammered it into chisels
Sure.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you on that.
on
Now, as
board
far
with
as the
that, yeah.
contraption,
Yeah.
we can argue about the contraptions.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's a good point. The basis. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing that happens a lot is that people want to they want to come up with the devices,
Yes.
Send
me your theories on the Serapeum boxes. We shall destroy them.
That's right. I don't know. I guess my mind just doesn't go in that direction. I do. I wonder what they were doing, but I have looked at this long enough to where I feel like we just don't have enough information for me to start coming up with devices.
Yeah, I want to start coming up with devices though.
Yeah.
So it's a good team.
But this is the thing. You can come up with a device that totally will work, and you still don't know if that's what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that we just don't have enough information about the tools to build one.
But
I see what's going on here.
But this is the thing. You come up with the device, right? You invent a device, and then suddenly you're moving giant stones, right?
Yeah.
Then you can make a prediction. If they use this device, then we should find these types of things.
Yeah.
Because once you've started moving the stones, then you'll know what's needed.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, oh, well, I need to socket this in here, and we're actually going to need a really big hole that's really long and rectangular with things.
Yeah.
And then you're like, we should find similar holes in the bedrock that are like this.
Well,
And then you go and look around the site,
maybe.
and then you find a giant hole that has a boat in it.
Well, okay, maybe if they've thought about it the way you think about it when they're building it.
No, but the point is if you're using a specific, that's kind of the way it works, right? Like you have an experimenter, and then you have a theorist,
Yeah.
right? So people are looking at like where are the problems? How do we falsify whatever ideas we have now, and then
Yeah. I see
come
what
up with
you're
a
saying.
theory of how it might have been done, and then an experiment person builds a contraption thinking like, okay, maybe I can find something out, and then they build the contraption, and then they learn something from the experiment, and then the theorist takes that data and says, okay, if that worked, then we should find this here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go look for that.
Right.
So you need both.
So
You need both
that'll
types.
result in a lot of very interesting devices and still no answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Russ on this one. It's the underpants gnome dilemma.
Because another team.
Kyle's totally right, though.
One.
There's no reason to not try to come up with methods, but asking if that's how they did it is just, I don't know. Because the answer is just like, we don't know. That's how I see it.
Let me give an example.
When people are saying, why couldn't they have done X?
I totally see what you're
Let
saying.
me give an
dude.
example.
Totally with you there.
We know for sure that you can lift objects using levers and ropes and pulleys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you build a contraption and you say, this is how they did it, right?
Yeah.
That's the theory.
Yeah.
Well, then you go to the site and you look for evidence for that, and you find that like there isn't any supporting evidence for that.
Right.
So then you can throw that one out.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think I agree with both of you.
I
Yeah.
also agree with Russ that it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find out how they did it, but it is a way to get rid of things that they didn't do.
Yeah, but
so then you're further narrowing.
yeah. You're
narrowing,
taking
yeah.
the next step, but we get lots of communications from people saying, "Well, why couldn't they have done it this way?" And my answer is they could have done it that way if your method works. Sometimes I don't know enough to say that would do anything, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, let's say that the premise of whatever somebody is asking, why couldn't they have done it this way? Let's say that the premise itself is feasible. Well, then maybe they could have done it that way. We just don't know if they did it that way.
Right.
That's what I mean. That's the answer to why couldn't they have done it this way is they could have done it that way. And until we, like Kyle said, take the next step where you say, well, if they did it that specific way, are there like tool marks or things that are necessary for that tool to work, like anchor points or whatever that we could go look for and say, here's some anchor points. Maybe that means that they did do it that way, but are there other possible ways where they would have needed anchor points? Yes. That's what I'm saying. It's very difficult to answer the question of why did
it's falsifying. That's what you're doing. Really, what you need to do is throw things out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's always good to ask questions and wonder, and of course, I think that what the standard model has done is they have done this. They have said, it's possible to move blocks around using these very primitive methods. Therefore, that's how they did it.
Right.
It's the same thing, So then you can come up. You can from the same way in the same way. You can come up with a very technological way that they could have done it and said they did it that way because it's possible that way. That's just isn't. You can't approach it like that.
Right. Right.
I agree.
Because there's a million ways to do a building project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my way's better than your way.
Right. The reason why
the new guy comes in.
Yeah, the reason why there are arguments on job sites is because there's a million ways to do
That's
things.
That's it. The pyramid took, at least 20 years, right? So actually it was built a lot of different ways.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of different foremen on there, and each one of them knew that their way of doing it was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And the South Side would hang out with the South Side guys, and the West Side guys would hang out. You got these cliques on which side of the pyramid you're working on.
Hey, and sometimes you have to take off a layer and redo.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you're like, dude, listen.
That ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
The last 10 years when Johnson was in charge, nah.
Yeah.
We're pulling the one layer off.
Yeah. That's right. But I don't know, for whatever reason, for me, the more I've looked at, especially in Egypt, the tool marks, and then I start to see them around the world, and I just say, I don't think we have any way of figuring out what they were doing.
Yeah, we don't have enough information.
Right.
Until one of us gets abducted by aliens, I don't think.
I don't think about it that way, though.
Enough information.
I look at them, I look at the tool marks, I look at the evidence on the ground, and I'm constantly thinking about not necessarily the contraption itself. A lot of times I am thinking about contraptions, but I'm thinking about like specifically what the tool marks aspect is like method of removal, like in other words, the function. Is it a hammer action? Is it vibration? Is it high frequency vibration? Is it, that kind of stuff? I'm always thinking of like what mechanism could produce this smooth curve right here, but this flat surface and all this. So I think of physical mechanism or action.
Yeah.
To try to figure out the removal type, and then from there start reverse engineering like contraptions, and I see arms and articulating things, and I've always got something like that going in my head. So that's just the way I think.
That happens to me too. I see articulated arms. I imagine how is the cutting tip working? How are they removing the material? But
at the end of the day,
I'm just like, I have no idea.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We don't have any idea.
We don't have any idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all agree on that.
All right.
Okay. So are we done in here?
I think we're done. Yeah. Zero answers today on Brothers of the Serpent podcast, as usual.
Right when I feel
Except for sheepskin gloves. I think that was the only answer we got from the entire podcast. Sheepskin gloves was the answer.
I feel like just when the rust starts just knocking off over here, it's like, all right, we're wrapping it up. So
You were like knocking off. You could tell. You just like you put the phone down. You're
Yeah.
like, it's over.
no, the rust on me, like, because I'm not in here a lot.
Oh, you're knocking the rust
The
off.
rust.
The rust. Sorry.
Okay.
I feel like
I was
when
like-
I'm sitting over here, just as the rust starts getting knocked off. Oh, I see. You thought rust.
Yeah.
Game over.
Yeah.
The rust. Then it's like, all
You're
right,
basically just saying you're just getting warmed up, and now we're like quitting.
just getting more. This is what I feel like happens. I'm not in here for a while, and then it's like, oh, I get to come in.
Yeah.
And then it's time to close it down. I'm like, I'm just getting going.
Okay, well,
No, we're not gonna keep going.
no, we're not keeping going. But I mean, I guess what you're saying is you need to be in a series.
Yeah.
No.
We need to get you in another.
We need to
book
get you
report.
in more often.
Well,
and
I
on
was just
another
going to say to
series.
the Snake Force, like, I'll see you guys on the next listener communication. Like, however many weeks that is, I'll see you again.
Yeah. Well, we should have you in here more often for sure.
Well, you know, those kids.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're getting older, so it's getting easier, you know?
Yeah. I mean, is it, though?
What I mean is it's getting easier to make it so that somebody else can take care of them long enough for us to do a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up,
But
Watcher?
hey, listen, I love coming in here. Totally. 100% love.
Yeah.
We love having you, babe.
Anything else?
Watcher was trying to
I
say
had
something
one
multiple
thought.
times.
Oh, okay.
Going back to the gentle seas of a non-moon Earth,
Ah,
right? Would it be possible to take a canoe then across the Atlantic without ripping moon waters?
I'm so glad you circled back around to this.
we don't know what the
Or like a Viking longboat makes it easily across the ocean because you don't have huge swells,
yeah we just
potentially, if there's no moon.
yeah.
Like they always talk about how primitive cultures didn't have the ships to do it, but all right, well, what if the seas weren't giant scary?
Yeah.
Could you do it then?
Glassy seas. Man, you'd be rowing a lot.
Yeah.
Unless there were some
Yeah, you
serious
would.
jets and like serious
Currents.
prevailing winds and,
And currents,
stuff.
yeah.
Well, but I'm glad.
I think small unpowered boats basically go where the currents take them,
Yeah.
no matter how much paddling
That's
you do.
true. That's true.
Yeah. But who's going to answer Valley Girl's question of what lit up the sky at nighttime before the moon?
The stars were brighter.
Yeah. You just
Spaceships.
had to
It was-
live.
That's
yeah.
not
UFOs.
satisfying enough.
Live near
UFOs, babe.
My eyebrows are still a little furrowed. Like, wait.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about the moon is it like if you, and this might be very in general, but if you get rid of the moon, or in other words, you don't introduce the moon until very recently, then you have a big evolutionary problem because tidal pools
Yeah.
figure large into the gradual movement of animals out of the marine environments and onto land. That you can,
True.
in terms of evolution, it's the shallow.
Oh, the tides just threw the animals up.
No, they would,
I'm kidding.
yeah, but it is basically something like that over a very long time, a very long period of time. The tide throws them out onto the land. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or the things that
Yeah,
were
so-
in the rocks underwater, the water just disappears, and it's like, well, you're either gonna live or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you end up with areas with very thin water cover and lots of animals trapped in there, and over time you get an entire biome in there.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with extremely unlikely scenarios.
I don't either. Yeah.
But I would have to agree, just in my own little, pulleys and gears and levers that run around in my mind when I think about stuff, the physics of things, that it's really would be incredibly unlikely to get such a regular orbit in such a short period of time with
Yeah.
a body that just came in from outside the solar system or from some other place, was catastrophically ejected from whatever other normal orbit it had before it then came from another planet and came down here.
Yeah.
It just, to
Yeah.
be that recent and somehow where like, in other words, I would be wondering, like, where is the other thing that helped make it so regular? Did that thing just get thrown out of the solar system in the process? Like, you want to introduce something else to help pull it into this nice, perfect orbit.
Yeah.
So maybe a rogue planet comes in, snags it,
Yep.
and throws it in some weird dance, and then the rogue planet goes out, and then the moon's flying around the solar system for some time, and then some other large body comes in and then somehow makes it.
Well, what if it is a spaceship and it was kind of built up there in sections?
Yeah, that's I'm all about that. That's cool.
But remember, the reason why that's so hard is not because that scenario is unlikely, but because the moon itself, this is one of the great quotes that guy David put into the thing that we covered in the Patreon segment, was one of the quotes where the guy was like, the best explanation for the moon is that it's a mass hallucination, right? That
it shouldn't be there.
It's just so unlikely in every possible scenario that you can think of, that the idea that it was a rogue body that came in and was captured, recently, and it's just so unlikely,
That it was thrown out of the Earth by an impact is so unlikely, because you end up with the same problem.
Yeah, that should make a ring, not a not a big moon.
And as the Mad Fiddler pointed out in another comment on the website, that they scoff at the idea that something hit Jupiter and threw something out of Jupiter.
Yeah, that was a great comment. Yeah.
But then they're like, oh yeah, but by the way, here's how the moon was made.
Right, yeah. It's ridiculous that Venus was created by something hitting Jupiter and spitting it out. But
that's a good point.
The moon was created in that very same way. Yeah.
Yeah, how could Venus possibly have such a nice orbit around the sun if it was like catastrophically ejected from Jupiter?
Right. And here we are with the moon. Yeah.
It's a great point.
It is. It is a great point.
And that's another reason why I'm okay with incredibly unlikely scenarios, because this is one. The whole freaking universe.
That's right. That's what I was going to say too. Like, nothing wrong with very unlikely things, because look around you. The entire universe is incredibly unlikely.
And it's totally wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, guys. brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of us and maybe get your email read on the show, possibly. Check out brothersoftheserpent.com if you want to go to the website. That's got all the podcast-related stuff there. And all the other stuff. Join the Discord. Check out the Library of the Serpent. And join the Pyramid Scheme if you want to support the show and get Patreon episodes. We had one guy, at least. I thought I remember this.
I need to go to the post office box.
We do have a producer today.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Terrible with this. Yes, we do. You're right. We decided to give...
What's his name?
Oh.
I thought I knew his name.
I think we have a couple.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Yeah, so Greg. Yeah. Greg from Florida. Actually met him on Scablands trips.
Yep.
So, hey, what's up, dude? He says, Snake Bros. Really loving the Richard Feynman stuff. Too bad this form limits my comments to 250 characters, because I'd be able to explain in detail how to get around all the left-right conundrum when communicating with aliens, but in a nutshell... And his comments were cut off.
I think I remember him. That's awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. That's awesome. He is the executive producer of this episode of Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Much appreciated. And we also have a associate executive producer, Antonio Kasljevic.
Oh, yes.
Kasljevic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I didn't mention Andrew Kaighin.
Thank you.
I think is how you pronounce his last name, is the executive producer. Sorry about that. Antonio Kasljevic, he says, thanks for ruining my life. Here's some money. Love you, Snake Bros.
Heck yeah, dude. That's
no
awesome.
problem, bro.
No
Anytime.
problem.
Yeah,
I love those kind of donations. Who was the guy that sent us the donation note that was like, I want, like, here's a donation. Please give me my small brain back. Who was that?
I was better before I knew all of this. I was better before I didn't know.
So he's from Sweden as well.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you donate through the PayPal, which you can find the link for that on the website, you can become an associate executive or executive producer, and we'll put you in the credits for that episode. Thank you guys so much for doing that.
Thanks for all the sustaining donations of smaller amounts.
Yep. Sign up to the Patreon. You can get Patreon access. We put material up there whenever we have time. We record extra episodes, and we put videos and other random things up there as well. So yeah, thank you guys. We love you.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night,
love you the most.
Oh, good night, Adamu.
See? Rusty.
Get back to work.
Get back to work.
There you go.